Okay, Baltimore City Council Ways and Means Committee. We are back for ordinance 24-0521, ordinance estimates for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. Eric Costello, councilman from the 11th District, chair of the committee. Starting on my far right, Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton, 6th District, member of the committee. Councilman Z. Cohen, 1st District. Councilman Mark Conway, 4th District. To my left, Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer, 5th District, Vice Chair of the committee. Councilwoman Odette Ramos, 14th District. Councilman Ryan Dorsey, 3rd District, member of the committee. To my immediate right, Nia Garrett, staff to the committee. We have representatives from the mayor's office and the council president's office here. We are here for Department of Transportation, or DOT. We also have representatives at my request, I want to thank, from Department of Human Resources and from the Office of the Labor Commissioner. Director Johnson, how much time do you anticipate needing for your presentation?
Probably just about a half hour.
Half hour, perfect. Director, I'm going to turn it over to you in a second. If you could please introduce all the members of your senior team that are testifying, those folks in the council member seats, first and last name and position title, and then take it away with your presentation, please, and thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Costello, and good afternoon to all of the board members. As stated, I am Corinne Johnson, Director for the Baltimore City Department of Transportation. With me today, I have Adam McLeod, Chief of Right-of-Way, Liam Davis, Legislative Affairs Manager, Kendall Abu Hakim, Maintenance Chief, Cleo Baumhofer, Interim Traffic Engineering Chief, Damian Taylor, Interim Maintenance Division Chief, because Kendall is leaving us effective this weekend. I'll continue. Tavon Braxton, Deputy Director for Operations. Bimo Defcoda, Chief of Transportation Engineering and Construction. Stu Sirota, Deputy Director for Planning and Sustainable Transportation. Tish Gardner, Deputy Director for Administration. Jamar Rain, he is the HR Manager. Valerie LaCour is the ADA Compliance Chief, or ADA Division Chief. And then there's other staff in back chairs. Thank you. So I will go on and get started in the presentation. So the Department of Transportation is focused on maintaining and improving the transportation infrastructure to provide a safe, reliable, accessible, and efficient system for everyone who uses our roadways, thereby promoting a livable and vibrant communities across the city. Our fiscal 25 goals include promoting organizational excellence by attracting, developing, and retaining a talented, diverse, and engaged workforce, increasing agency efficiency through process improvements, technology enhancements, and innovation, and enhancing service delivery by prioritizing customer satisfaction to meet and exceed the needs and expectations of those who use our roadways. Here's an overview of the DOT org chart with the different service areas that are included in our budget. And then getting into them. So street lighting. This service area is focused on designing and installing and maintaining all of our roadway and pedestrian lights throughout the city. The service position count is down by 1 due to a mid-year position action. As you see here, we have 2 performance measures listed, one being the percent of inspected streets meeting city roadway lighting standards, and the target for this is 60%. And the percent of street light outages repaired within 4 days by internal crews, and the target is 96%. As you can see, for fiscal year 23, the target was 90%, but the actual was actually 99%, so there is a high performance in this area. For conduits, the budget continues funding 67 positions that would be dedicated to the city's efforts associated with maintaining the conduit network. The division's goal is to provide a reliable and efficient conduit system in a state of good repair. And so to do this, we are working on the system to make basic maintenance and spot repairs, comprehensive repairs, rehab work, and further replacement of the conduit assets. Of course, there have been some changes, of course, with the capital improvement program and working with BGE now, and so I suspect there might be some questions about that. Our conduit chief, engineering supervisor, and field service managers have monthly meetings with BGE's conduit leadership to review all ongoing capital improvement projects. Every month, they provide the division with a list of completed projects. And apart from those scheduled meetings, the division meets with BGE as needed in response to all emergency field meetings and requests. So the BGE conduit capital team averages about 25 project sites every day. And we have a staff of 11 inspectors who are out there daily inspecting the different sites and documenting all the work that's occurring. Administration, this covers all the executive direction and support functions for the agency's operating divisions, including HR, IT, contract administration, equal opportunity compliance, and fiscal and procurement. And so this maintains our current level of service. Under street management, it includes preventive maintenance, resurfacing, and streetscaping of 4,745 lane miles of city roadways, sidewalks, and additional lane miles of alleys throughout the city. With our performance metrics, the percent of pothole service requests repaired within 48 hours has a 99% target. Of course, we have been, with the administration, working on many sprints focused on potholes, so that is a large target for our agency. For the total number of lane miles resurfaced by internal crews, the target for 24 is 30. The target for 25 is 12. One thing to consider with the internal resurfacing that's been changing is, of course, we have to shift how we're doing the work, giving all the additional ADA compliance work and other things we're having to do as a part of that work. So it's a little bit different than historical years. Under traffic management, this is responsible for designing, installing, maintaining, and inspecting the city's network of 250,000 traffic control signs and devices. Also under this area, things like speed humps installed is included. So that's one of those performance measures. Fiscal 24 target is 150, and the 25 target is 150. So again, we might have a certain number of locations, but each location can vary in the number of speed humps that are installed. Sometimes it might be 2, other times it could be 6 or 7 or more. Special events is responsible for overseeing the permitting process for outdoor special events and street vendors. This maintains the current level of service, recognizing that this is not an independent thing just for DOT, but street special events expands across various agencies throughout the city. As far as the number of events served with setup and breakdown booths, the target for that is 300 for fiscal 25. And the number of large special event applications entered into the system within 7 days is a target 100% to make sure we, at least in the initial phases, keeping those on target for their timelines. Under Inner Harbor Services, this focuses on maintaining the public right-of-way at the Inner Harbor, including the lighting, the promenade bulkhead, finger piers, and water and utility hookups. There really are no changes with this. It maintains the current level of service. The percent of light repairs completed on time for fiscal 25 target is 95%, and the 100% remains for the watering points accessible to docking boats. Snow and ice control, of course, this is for our winter operations effort of removing snow and ice throughout the city. This includes the equipment costs, the cost of all the different city employees, and all of the salt and de-icing supplies, and also our contractor support. This maintains the current level of service. And so with the percent of service requests closed within 12 hours of the end of a weather event, that target is remaining at 100%. And the percent of snow equipment out of service during the snow event is 5%. And we do work collaboratively with DGS in all the preventive maintenance and all the inspections ahead of time to get our equipment up and ready for the winter events. And then there's close coordination should anything go down during the event, and we're shifting resources as needed. Vehicle impounding and disposal. Again, this goes into our impounding and towing of vehicles that are illegally parked and abandoned. There are some changes under this line item for this year. $452,000 is added for software upgrades to the vehicle inventory system, and $168,000 added for a new lease overflow location. For the number of property damage claims filed, the target is at 133. Obviously, you want to keep that as low as possible. And the Pulaski Tow Yard storage rate is at 90%. In the past, of course, when we had a higher uptick of the stolen vehicles, those percentages were higher, but we're staying on top of it to try to keep those rates around the target. Sustainable transportation. This really just gets into different cleaner forms of transportation. And so, of course, the city has the free Charm City Circulator. And so the target for the number of circulator riders annually is 2.3 million. And then we also have our dockless vehicles program, which is like our scooters and e-bikes and adaptive vehicles. And the number of miles ridden through shared mobility target is 120,000. Under the public right-of-way landscape maintenance, this also maintains the current level of service. This service maintains the most grass in 870 median strips in the city roadways. The number of segments of right-of-way maintained annually is remaining from fiscal '24 at 4,000, and the percent of median streets mowed on schedule per cycle target is 100%. For bridge and culvert management, this focuses on the maintenance of the city's 305 bridges. Excuse me. The number of major bridge repairs performed target is at 10, and the average bridge sufficiency rating target remains at 77%. Under parking enforcement, this of course is to enforce all the different parking laws throughout the city. A major change to this one is the addition of $650,000 to pilot license plate reader technology, which would allow us to better enforce residential parking violations throughout the city. The percent of abandoned vehicle complaints closed within 5 business days target is 6%, and the percent of parking complaint service requests closed on time is 99%. Survey control, it supports the having a system of accurate survey points used by civil engineers, land title agents, developers, and others who are preparing plans such as roadway and bridge designs, residential development projects, and sale and acquisition of property for municipal use. And so there aren't any changes here. It's maintaining the current level of service. The number of control stations replaced, target is 100, and the percent of survey control stations is reset is 100%. This is a rather small team, but they have great performance standards. Dockmaster, so this one we are actually in the process of developing new performance standards. We're currently recruiting for Dockmaster and some other staff to help position up that team and developing a program. So that's why it says new performance managements are under development for this service. But this will be for any docking vehicles, the vessels that come into the harbor. Under street cuts management, this covers inspecting and monitoring all street cuts that are happening within the city's right-of-way. And again, it maintains the current level of service. We have a 95% target for street cut SRs closed on time, and the number of street cuts determined to be improper during inspection is 0%. That is our target. Again, we're wanting to ensure that everyone is working within the right-of-way effectively and per our standards. For traffic safety, this is responsible for all programs focused on improving traffic and pedestrian safety. This service budget includes funding for speed and red light cameras as well. Revenue from the I-83 cameras is restricted specifically for I-83 projects and the cost to actually run that program. And so you'll see the breakout where it says the general fund cameras, the contract cost up to 3%, which is just the standard inflation. And the ID3 cameras contract cost down 24% based on activity. And so also abolishes 10 vacant positions based on current activity trends. So we initially were funded to have a certain number of quality assurance based on the number of citations. went on and abolished some of those positions since they're not currently needed. It also gets into other, like I said, other pedestrian safety programs. So the number of crosswalks striped annually by internal crews, the target is 150, and the number of street lane markings installed is 300. Real property management is responsible for analyzing and approving all construction activities within the city right-of-way. This also had some additional money, so $621,000 added to replace project planning software with the goal of reducing the number of street cuts. And for the number of requests for address changes processed, the target is 5,000. And the percent of developer agreements submitted for interagency review within 7 days, the target is 100%. So now I'll get, the next two slides just give a little bit as far as our agency updates. For utility coordination, we regularly engage in proactive coordination to mitigate conflicts. We have monthly utility meetings that occur with DPW and major utilities. An exclusive resurfacing coordination meeting is also attended. Previously, we utilized Invista for all permanent work, but we have transitioned as of April to OpenGov. We go through each individual project and strive to identify conflicts. For particularly complex projects, like the Vicinity Steam Project on Calvert Street, we established bi-weekly meetings with DPW, Vicinity, DPW, and Mercy Hospital to review the plans and discuss the work. There was phased work, and collaboratively, we actually moved up the DPW project to coordinate the work within the right-of-way and minimize impacts. Typically, what we see with utility coordination and some of the complaints work that or anticipate. For our grant efforts and funding, we have continued to be really strong in this area, securing multiple grant awards and demonstrating strong support and confidence from various funding agencies in our vision and our impact. From 2023 to 2024, we have won grants totaling $38.3 million. Grants recently applied for, awaiting result, is $20.7 million. And then there are grant applications currently in development, which totals approximately $25 million. We anticipate there's other grants that we would expect to apply later in this year based on the NOFOs, but that could represent another potential $10 million. So we are actively going for large amounts of money to bring that in and leverage the limited resources we have in the city and deliver projects for our communities. For human capital, a holistic approach looking at the determining that the street cuts better aligns under right-of-way division, and then the signs and pavement marking better aligns under the traffic division. Unfortunately, for the past 2 decades, the traffic division itself has had a hard time keeping a chief long-term. There's been a lot of turnover in that area. And so we took a deep dive and looked at best practices and have strategically those areas. So we're going to have the engineering division and the operations division. So it's more focused on those needs and not as strenuous on that one chief being over everything. And so that's representing some of the interim staff we have here today. But of course, we will be going through a competitive process to make any positions finalized. I am pleased to say that my replacement, our new Chief Engineer and Deputy Director for Complete Streets, will be starting on June 24th. He has over 40 years of experience in various state DOTs and many critical positions with the Federal Highway Administration, most notable being previously a division administrator for the Del Mar Division. And he has past roots in Baltimore and is excited and eager to return back to the city. In the last 4 months, we have attended 15 high school and community job fairs with over 900 contacts. And at the Mayor's Career Fair on May 16th, we offered interviews to 306 candidates. Of those, 102 showed up. This represents 20 positions, and we're still processing the interview results. We have offered 9 positions for CDLs, and they have all passed the pre-employment screening, and they will be starting on June 10th. We're also making offers for 10 TEOs, 9 crossing guards, 2 community liaisons, and many other positions. Our HR chief will actually be chairing the group for the city for the Baltimore City Apprenticeship. We have identified about 15 to 20 positions that we're seeking to hire as apprenticeships in lieu of allowing them to gain the necessary skills and abilities to qualify for our civil service positions and our civil service process. The training will consist of hands-on mentorship and instructional knowledge based on the minimum qualifications to apply. These positions or classifications include cement finishers, traffic electronic maintenance tech, welder, carpenter, and mason. We have also partnered with the Baltimore City Latino Providers Network to reach the Hispanic and Latino community. This network provides services for cultural, educational, employment, business, and the arts. And we meet monthly and provide English and Spanish job announcements and information to key stakeholders and Baltimore residents. And then finally, for the Mayor's HBCU Fellowship with Morgan State University and Coppin, under Morgan, we are anticipating receiving interns in potentially the Engineer 1 and 2 and City Planner 1 and 2 classifications. So for traffic updates, we have continued to make great progress on the traffic calming public facing portal. DOT, in working with BSET, has completed phase 1 and phase 2 of the development of this traffic calming portal. This included the planning, requirements gathering, design, and development of the preliminary visual and data architecture needed to automate a public-facing portal. Preliminary training has been completed with staff on prior usage and integration of the new traffic calming SOP. The pilot test phase is to begin this winter to provide a time cushion for post-development testing of the portal. Further training and SOPs will be developed for a full rollout in late '25. DOT has proactively initiated what we call neighborhood traffic calming that works with communities with high equity scores to introduce holistic traffic calming on local streets. The first round of projects are anticipated to be installed this construction season, and this represents 6 neighborhoods, to include Upton, Santan Winchester, Jewett Heights, Broadway East, and Midway. Under the Highway Safety Improvement Program grant, we have been awarded $2 million for pedestrian and vehicular safety treatment citywide for 11 different locations. And our signal optimization efforts continue to progress with areas completed in the south, downtown area under analysis and working towards the implementation phase, and data collection occurring in the east. This project will continue into early 2026. For parking enforcement, as part of the administration's commitment to safety, DOT is actively working in partnership with the Parking Authority of Baltimore City, Department of Finance, and the Office of Labor Commissioner to ensure implementation of overnight enforcement. And in line with union protocols, we will be presenting our overnight enforcement shift proposal to the union next week. This will bring us one step closer to this overnight enforcement need. And for street cut inspections, again, a small team, but very active. So far in fiscal '24, the Street Cuts Group has conducted 25,642 inspections, and they have issued fines totaling approximately $803,000. The team maintains a list of all permits with project timelines. Locations are assigned to inspectors for proactive inspections, and they also dispatch reactive inspections based on SRs and emails. That concludes my presentation. Thank you, and we open up for any questions and discussion.
Director, thank you. Who runs the DOT Twitter account?
That would be Benjamin.
Who's
On our social
Benjamin
media
here?
too? No,
Benjamin
he's
who?
not here today.
What's his last name?
How do you say that? Young Savage? Young Savage, sorry.
And what's his reporting chain of command?
So Marley is a supervisor, she's here.
And not quite yet, but I'm going to come back to this. And who does Ms. Marley report to?
To Vioba Aquila.
Got it. Thank you. I'll come back to that in a little
Okay.
bit. Parking enforcement. On page 436 of volume 2, service 693, parking enforcement. Number of, I'm under performance measures, Laura. Number of citations issued and number of vehicles booted. We do not have targets for fiscal '24 or fiscal '25. Can you walk me through why that is?
That may be an issue in the budget book. I just want to verify. We identified some metrics that were not printed correctly in the online, or in the printed version of the books, and we corrected the online version for some of these items, and I'm just verifying really quickly if these were ones that we corrected.
Okay, yep,
I
I'll wait.
This is
Director, what was Benjamin's last name again? Young, hyphenated?
No, it's not pronounced the way it's spelled. I'll need help, someone spelling it correctly.
Can you come up, Marley, and spell that for me, please? While I wait on Laura. Thank you. One more. Yep.
So I can see that that is one that was not included in the corrections. This is in service 690.
Service 693,
690.
hard copy, page 436 of volume 2.
That's correct, and it looks like that's consistent with the performance plan information as well.
So in the revised electronic version, there is no target listed for both number of citations issued and number of vehicles booted for both fiscal 24 and fiscal 25, is that correct?
That's correct, and that's consistent with the performance plan submission for those metrics as well.
Can you walk me through that?
The data for the performance measures that appears in the budget documents is consistent with what was submitted through the agency performance plans that are also available on the mayor's office website, and I'm looking at the performance plan for that metric as well, and it's showing as not applicable for those two items for those 2 years.
Why would it be not applicable?
It may be, I'll defer to Director Johnson. There could be a variety of reasons for why information was not available to provide a target for those metrics. Sometimes that's a case of the agency maybe indicating that they may select a different measure, or there may be some operational issue that resulted in not being able to establish a target.
Director, before I jump to you,
Yeah.
I'll note that you have performance information listed for fiscal 20, 21, 22, and 23. Can you walk me through this?
Yeah, I want to confirm, but I believe some of the conversation surrounding this was not that we don't want to obviously be enforcing parking and issuing citations, but the perception, if we say that we have a certain goal, then would that goal be looked at from a public standpoint as like predatory of some kind, where we're trying to go after people? So, but I need to verify that and follow up with you on that to confirm.
I mean, for the police department in service 623, we have number of homicide warrants served. We have number of homicide cases cleared. This is an enforcement function, right?
Yes, it is, understood.
The product of parking enforcement is citations issued and vehicles booted, which is a quality of life issue that generates revenue for the city.
Yep, sir. So we look at this as a safety issue, and safety is absolutely our priority. I think what we can do here is we can pull the actuals for you and get you the actuals on what the tickets that we were, and citations that we actually were able to issue in FY24, and we can provide that information to you. But as far as establishing a target, I'm happy to work with the performance team. But again, like the director said, we do have to be careful of public perception of setting this lofty goal around citations, because it could look predatory, but happy to have those conversations offline about what we measure in the future and to provide you the actuals.
I appreciate that. The first piece on the actuals is definitely appreciated. I'd like to have the conversation publicly about what the performance measure is here, because I'm not understanding how we measure the effectiveness of the parking enforcement function if we're only measuring the percent of parking complaint service requests closed on time, which we have a goal of 99%, and the percent of abandoned vehicle complaints closed within 5 business days, which we have a goal of 60%.
So those aren't the only things that we're measuring. We're measuring the number of citations issued, the number of vehicles booted. I think those are still performance measures. What you see is that there's not a goal listed, but we do and will provide actuals. So they are a part of our performance measures.
So when did we make the decision that we were no longer going to strive to achieve a certain number for each of these categories?
So there's not a target for FY24 or a target for FY25. So it would be FY24.
So do we have documentation of the discussion in which the administration determined that we're no longer going to strive to issue a certain number of citations?
So I will check with the performance teams. As I mentioned during my hearing, we actually did individual meetings with every single agency as we developed their performance plan and metrics. I believe there may be notes, but I'll confirm with my team to see if there are notes regarding this measure in particular.
Okay. So either the CAO or the director, how do we measure the effectiveness of the parking enforcement function?
I mean, honestly, this is one of those metrics where I'm not sure that we want to see growth in the number of citations issued, right? We want to see compliance with traffic laws, with parking laws. And so we would want to see that number go down. We wouldn't actually want to see that number go up if we're doing our job and if residents are complying. So this is one of those measures where it's not as straightforward as establishing some lofty goal. I'm happy to, again, continue to have the conversation with our performance team about that. And I'm happy to pull the notes from those conversations. But this is a measure of the program because we are tracking what the actuals are for the number of citations issued as well as the number of vehicles booted.
I appreciate and understand what you just explained. I disagree, but I understand it. I can comprehend it. Where is ATVES enforcement in the budget book? Maybe that's a Laura question or CFO question. Safety? That's 697. Thank you, sir. Traffic safety. Okay. 697. So we don't measure well, I assume we measure it, the number of red light and speeding camera and truck monitoring camera citations that we issue.
We track the data. So just
track
like we
it.
talked about the actuals for the enforcement, we have the actuals for this.
Right.
And so that's the
Well-
thing, like I mentioned about 83, for example, we anticipated a large amount of revenue coming in because
Right.
we anticipated more citations. Thankfully, there's been compliance, and so those citations are fewer, so we are bringing in less money, but that's the goal, is to make the roads safer. So we're actually getting lower number of citations coming in.
Because when BBMR comes in to report quarterly to us, there's always a slide on red light and speed cameras, and we talk about, we have a narrative about how the speed camera program on 83 is effective, right? Because we have this chart and it goes down like this, and we talk about how it's changing behavior, right? Because the ultimate goal here is not to your point, is to not generate revenue, it's to change bad behavior that's illegal. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm just confused that we like to tell the narrative for the cameras on 83 and talk, look, this wonderful thing we've done. We've created this program and we've started issuing citations, and citations have gone down, which means the behavior has changed, which is a good outcome. But we doesn't feel like we have a desire to create a narrative like that around parking enforcement. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that the right way, but I'm hopeful that you all can see the analogy that I'm building here. Under parking enforcement, 693, we have 86 pins for traffic enforcement officer 1 and 19 for officer 2. Can someone explain to me the differentiation and that classification? I assume just one is senior to the other.
It's simply experience.
Just level of experience or
Yeah.
length of service?
Yep.
Okay. And the more senior one is the 2, correct? Or the more experienced one?
Correct.
Got it. And of those 86 Officer 1 and 19 Officer 2 positions, how many of those pins are currently filled?
Give me one moment. Yeah, so currently we have a total, I can't divide them up right at hand. We have 20 TEO vacancies, but we have 9 of them that are in the pre-employment process.
Okay, real quick, when you say TEO, I think Transportation Enforcement Officer, and I just want to confirm that that is not a different function that exists within Service 697 Traffic
No.
Safety.
Yes, it's the same that we're talking about.
This is,
For the, wait a minute, which one are you,
so,
you're
let
referring
me
to?
go back.
Okay,
So, I apologize if I was confusing here. In Service 693, Parking Enforcement, there's Officer 1, there's 86 of those pins. There's Officer 2, there's 19 of those pins, which is a total of 105 pins. Plus, there's the 15 supervisor positions. I assume those are separate. I assume that those folks are authorized to issue citations, correct? They can. How many of those 15 positions are filled? So I'm on, hold on. Do we have an extra budget book up here? Nancy's going to give it to if you could give it to the director. Or you have a hard copy of what I'm looking at?
see what he's looking at.
I'll take one.
Oh, that's what he's looking at. Okay, got you, thank you.
I'm on page 438 of volume 2.
Yeah. Okay, yes, so when I say the TEOs, I'm referring to the Transportation Enforcement Officers listed here. The total number of vacancies I have listed just doesn't distinguish between the 1s and the 2s. So of those positions combined, there are 20 vacancies.
20 total.
20 total, but 9 of them are people that we have made offers and we're in that pre-employment process. So potentially that number would drop down to 11.
Okay. Who's the person from
Jamar?
from DHR?
Oh, DHR. Talking about DHR? Okay.
Yep. Can you please come up, ma'am? And thank you very much. And please hit that button on the bottom right of your microphone setup. Thank you so much. So is that your understanding? Any vacancies and 11 offers have been made? Or is that a function that doesn't go through you but goes through DOT HR?
DOT HR actually makes the offers, we just post the jobs. So right now, we're showing that there are 21 vacancies, but if there's one that's been filled between the time that I've run the numbers, that could happen.
I'm not going to split hairs over one, at least
Sure.
not today.
Yeah.
So DHR's role in this process is you post the job description at the request of the agency.
Correct.
Job position is posted, and then DOT HR handles it from there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I apply for a job at DOT Parking Enforcement, apparently I'm going to be looking for a new job soon, but when one applies for a job with DOT Parking Enforcement, right, they see your posting on the DHR website, right?
The city's website, correct.
Yep, and then they apply, and then it comes directly to you, right?
Yes, sir.
Once
it
you
does-
meet, it's a civil service position, so you must meet the minimum qualifications of that position before the candidates are referred to the agency.
Got it. And just to be clear, I'm not applying for one of those positions.
Okay.
And that includes this whole keyword issue in which, is it DHR or DOTHR, which scans the resume and/or cover letter for certain keywords to make sure that keywords are in there to determine eligibility of potential applicants?
We don't scan the resume to review the resumes. We manually look at each resume that comes into the city.
Okay.
You're talking about an AI feature that we don't have in the city, so we have a team that actually manually reviews all the resumes.
And they will theoretically omit or disqualify a resume if it doesn't have certain keywords in it. Is that correct?
Yes, if it does not meet the minimum qualifications that are listed in the job position, if that person doesn't meet that minimum qual, we will disqualify that candidate. Or the candidate may have to provide additional information that's missing from their resume. You have 7 days to be able to come back and say, I do have the qualifications, I just didn't put it on my resume.
Got it. And what are those minimum qualifications for a traffic enforcement officer one?
So you would need to have graduated from an accredited high school or have a possession of a GED. You would have to have 6 months' experience in the enforcement, parking control, or traffic regulations. You have to have a valid Maryland Class C non-commercial driver's license and eligibility to obtain a Baltimore City driver's permit. You must be 21, satisfactorily pass fingerprint background check, also that's done by the police department.
And if you could educate me, a Class C Maryland driver's license is the driver's license that virtually everyone in this room has, right? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And then once they check all those boxes, 5 or 6 boxes, then they come to you, correct?
Yes. Once they are referred from DHR, then they come to DOTHR, and that's when we move forward with the interview process.
Okay, so you review a resume and you determine if you recommend that someone interview this person or not, correct?
So the resumes are reviewed by DHR, and then that's when they're referred to us, the DOTHR.
So anyone who's qualified gets an interview?
For the most part, yes.
And who conducts that interview?
So we have a team of HR generalists, 1s and 2s, who conduct the interview, along with the panel.
Along with a panel?
Yes.
Who's on the panel?
So we select the panel, randomly select the panel. We have an SOP that dictates that no one in that particular agency can serve on the panel. So we look for persons outside that particular division,
Outside of the division or the agency? You said agency.
the division.
Outside of the division. So, for example, you might have people from the DOT conduit division or the maintenance division that are on a panel reviewing folks for public safety or safety/parking enforcement, correct?
Yes.
And
We also have an observer from that division that sits on the panel as well. They just don't have any voting privileges.
Do they have input?
No.
And what is the pool of eligible individuals to serve on the panel?
So it depends on the pool that we've received from DHR.
Let me ask a question again. You referenced a panel,
Oh, okay.
and there's you mentioned that there was a panel of individuals that review the resumes along with DOT HR. And that panel of individuals come from divisions within DOT that are not the hiring division, right? So for parking enforcement, let's say you're picking people from conduit division. I'm just making something up here. I'm asking, what is the pool of individuals whom you pull from to be on said panel?
So in reference to, so the policy says that they have to be of the same or a higher grade in order to serve on the panel. So that's how we determine who serves on the panel. They have to be of that same grade or higher grade. And then we, of course, we send the information out to the agency, seeing who can serve on the panel. And then that's when we put the panels together.
Is that a voluntary assignment?
Yes.
Does DOTHR generally have trouble filling those voluntary assignments for this panel?
No.
Do individuals get paid extra to serve on this panel?
No.
And the director indicated that you have 20 current vacancies in 20 or 21, but let's just call it 20. And you have offers out to 11 of those folks? Or you have offers out to 11 folks related to those 20 vacancies, correct?
Yeah, we have 10 offers out to fill those positions,
10.
yes.
Oh, you had said 9. Okay, so 10. Okay, so same difference. And when were those offers? Were those offers all made in one tranche?
They were emailed out to the individuals. For the hiring fair, we had, that's when we had a number of people to come through, and that's when we extended the offers out to them. Some have received their conditional offers, others still haven't received because we're still going through all the paperwork.
When was the hiring fair?
5/16.
So of those 10 that are out, are all of those conditional offers?
Yes.
So there's the separate the other category that you were discussing, that's more hypothetical, but that, right now, there are 10 conditional offers out, correct?
That's correct.
And when do you anticipate having those filled?
So it's going to be about a month and a half. And the reason why we say that is because they do have to go through the Baltimore Police Department, their commission, and which that process, takes a little longer for us. So they go through a regular process of urinalysis, the DHR's background check, but then they also go through BPD's background check as well. to be
What's the
commissioned.
general amount what's the average amount of time that it takes an individual to go through that process with BPD?
About 3 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks.
3 to 5 weeks. Have you experienced losing potential candidates because of that amount of time?
So I've only been with the agency for 4 months, and during that time, I haven't, maybe one, but not a large number of people.
Who was your predecessor?
Nick Fontanez,
Where's Nick now?
he's with Department of Finance now.
He's in BBMR or just finance?
He's the HR director for the entire Department of Finance.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, you were going to say something, and I kind of cut you off.
Yep. One thing I do want to offer, can we talk a little bit about the eligibility list and how long those lists are active? Because we can actually pull folks from an active list.
So once you make that qualified list, meeting those minimum qualifications, a candidate will stay on that list for 6 months.
And you're referring to the kind of the 5 or 6 check boxes that you outlined?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then who owns that list, DHR or DOTHR?
DHR owns the list until we refer the candidates to the hiring agency.
Okay, so let's say we have 20 openings, and let's say we made all those conditional offers today, and there were 5 other people that were on that list. That those 5 individuals stay on that list for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And does this gentleman over here know that you have a list of kind of 5 in the bank that he
Right.
can come
Mhm.
back to?
Correct, yes.
And is that, how frequently is that list communicated with this gentleman and his counterparts in other agencies?
We have an arrangement now that they're pretty much as soon as we get the candidates in, and we're referring candidates over as soon as we review them. So that list also, that position is posted as an evergreen, and because of it being posted as an evergreen, candidates can apply at any time.
What's an evergreen?
An evergreen is a job posting that allows agency to look for candidates. Maybe there's not a pin that's available at the time, but the position is open, so as candidates come in, we're reviewing them, sending them to the agency. If the agency has the available pins, they can hire a candidate, get their pin approved by fiscal, and then hire the candidate off of that list.
Okay, so if I was this gentleman and the director said to me, Eric, we need to hire some more parking enforcement officers, what would I do? Do I know to come to you to ask for that list?
You wouldn't come to me. If you're the hiring manager, you wouldn't come to me. You'll go to your agency HR practitioner. They would actually work with fiscal, and you would complete an open position requisition form, an OPR is what we call it. And then once that's completed, that would come to us to know that you have a pin that when we go to do the hire process, it moves the candidate over to the hire process.
Remind me of your name again, sir.
Jamar Rain?
Jamar Rain?
Yeah, like Rain, yes.
Mr. Rain, thank you. I won't forget that. So, Mr. Rain, so the director calls Mr. Rain and says, we need to hire some more parking enforcement officers. Mr. Rain fills out a form.
You, the hiring manager, fills it out first.
Oh, let me pause you, please.
Sure.
Who's the hiring manager in this scenario?
Well, of course, Aretha Mayfield is the division chief. So I'm not sure if it's one of the supervisors or who specifically they put on the form. Do you know offhand who specifically lists?
So it's usually Aretha Mayfield.
Okay.
So Chief Mayfield's
That's what
the
I was thinking.
okay, so Chief Mayfield's the hiring
Manager.
manager, and Mr. Rain is the agency HR rep?
Correct.
Okay. So director, who does the director call when she wants to fill parking? She calls Chief Mayfield to ask Chief,
Yes.
what do we have? You know, what do we need?
Well, and just so Chief Mayfield is actively working with HR on that. You know, they're working behind the scenes without even engaging me. I'm monitoring to see how many vacancies we have and checking performance. We have our HR update meetings, but they are continuously working on that and getting positions filled. When they finish the interview process and they're selecting candidates, then I will approve that part. When they're going to be doing the offer letters, I'll approve the offer letters and things like that. So that's where I'm more engaged in it, but a lot of that is really directly between HR and the hiring manager.
Okay, so Chief Mayfield and you talk all the time. Chief Mayfield knows she needs some new officers. So Chief Mayfield calls Mr. Rain and says, Mr. Rain, I need you to help me fill these positions because that's what you do. And you work with our friends in DHR to kind of do that. And then Mr. Rain, at the direction of a hiring manager, in this case, Chief Mayfield, you reach out to your counterparts in HR and you send them a form saying, I need to fill these pins. Do we have anyone in the hopper who's already pre-qualified, for lack of a better term? Correct?
Yes, after the OPR is submitted, after the rec is done, after the positions are qualified, then it comes to DOT HR. I will say for this particular position, we recently just posted, as you know, because of the mayor's career fair. It was about 130 to 160 people that applied for the position. Only
For parking enforcement?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, it was only 13 to 15 people that were qualified. So we sent those invitations out to those folk. I believe it was only 12 people that actually showed up, and 10 of them were chosen.
What was wrong with the other two?
I don't remember exactly. I wasn't there because there were so many
Can you
interviews.
give me an example of because assuming that those 12 were all pre-qualified or met the criteria, could you give me an example, a generic hypothetical example of why someone would get to that group of 12 but not make it to the group of 10?
Generic example would be,
Didn't interview well, or?
they did interview well. They came 45 minutes to 30 minutes late for the interview.
Got it. We're good. Okay, that's helpful. Okay, so we had 13 to 15 that we think met the criteria, and only 12 of them were responsive. So 12 of them made the list, and let's just assume only 10 of them had the soft skills necessary to move on and get the conditional offer. Okay. All right.
Yep. And can I offer one
Please.
additional thing? So related to this hiring fair, so this is a part of the Baltimore is Hiring campaign that we are doing with DHR, where we actually created an expedited process for some of our key roles. We had the hiring fair over at the War Memorial Building. I think it was 1,400 people showed up, but we wanted to ensure that we were filling some of these critical roles like our TEOs. And so that's why you're going to be seeing a lot more of these vacancies filled is because of the hiring fair and the expedited process that we put forward as a part of Baltimore is Hiring.
Got it. And then the, going back to Service 693, so the folks that serve as traffic enforcement officers, or I call them the white gloves, right? The folks that are directing traffic in the intersection with white gloves on. Those folks fall under Service 693 as well?
They're in the same category. So when we're saying TEOs, that's inclusive of parking and traffic enforcement.
Right, but that's helpful context. Just to confirm what I'm asking, individuals that perform the traditional TEO function, such as standing in an intersection and directing traffic, those positions are accounted for in Transportation Enforcement Officer 1 and 2 on page 438 of Volume 2 in Service 693. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And of those 105 pins, 20 of those are vacant, so that means we have 85. And then we have an additional 15 Supervisor 1 and 2 pins. I'm not sure that that question was answered. How many of those positions are vacant?
One supervisor position
Okay,
is vacant.
Okay, of the 15. Okay. So that's, so let's just go back to the 85 of 105. How many of those 85 are performing, what are those 85 folks doing? Like X are doing parking enforcement, Y are doing traffic enforcement? What's the breakdown?
So they're not, those aren't broken out. The way things are broken out, so there's different assigned shifts in different areas where they focus on. We have a dedicated or team that focuses on the abandoned vehicles. There's a scofflaw team for the booting, and then there are others that are doing all the other enforcement duties as well. So
Can you break down for me those different categories in terms of the number of officers assigned to each of those?
we probably have to follow back up with you with those specific numbers. We have it, I just don't have it with me here today.
Okay. I'm going to move to the next council member in a second, but is that information that you can request, that someone can request of someone via email now so that we can come back to it if it's readily available? And Director, if you could kindly humor me and explain to me those categories of shifts again, that would be helpful.
So, for example, there's like an early morning shift. It goes something around like 6:30 until the afternoon, and then there's going to be like a 3 to 11 time frame. There's different shifts like that during the day. We have a smaller shift that also works on the weekends. And again, like I said, each team might have certain specific, some of them are dedicated teams to specifically scofflaw or other,
Hold on one second.
or other scofflaw or abandoned vehicles, but then others are doing regular, whether it's street sweeping enforcement or RPPs or other type of enforcement.
Meter enforcement.
Yeah. So they do a
Stadium
plethora of different
event.
things.
And that includes RPP enforcement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can you
Yes.
repeat the request, and then I'll work with the chief of staff to see if we can pull that information? Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, of the 85, the 85 of 105 positions that are filled, if someone could break down the
The duties?
function or shift or what it is that those individuals are focusing on.
Got it. Thank you.
So Director, just going back to, could you rewind like 30 seconds and repeat what you said kindly?
So there's a shift that starts out early in the morning. So like around 6:30 or so, we'll confirm the actual time. And then it goes to more early afternoon time frame. Then there's another shift that slightly overlaps that, and it goes later into the evening. And there's another shift that goes later into the nighttime hours. And then there's a dedicated shift for smaller team for the weekends as well. Of those, there's a dedicated team for abandoned vehicle enforcement, and then there's a dedicated team for scofflaw for the booting as well. And then the rest of the TEOs do a mixture of the different types of enforcement duties, or also help with traffic enforcement if there's a concern, a need at particular intersections, things like that. So they can do all those duties.
Okay. All right, one other thing, do we have data on RPP citations issued in stadium enforcement areas during games? Specifically Orioles and Ravens?
We would be able to pull that data.
Okay,
We would identify those dates and then pull the citations issued on those particular dates.
okay. What would be helpful would be, so the RPP areas would be Area 8, Otterbein, Area 5, Ridgely's Delight, Area 41, Sharp Leadenhall, Area 9, Federal Hill, Area 30, South Baltimore, and Area B, Bravo, for Pigtown/Washington Village. And I would like the number of stadium enforcement RPP violations. If I'm not mistaken, an RPP violation is $52. However, when there's a designated stadium event, that citation jumps up to $252. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't want to,
I can look
I'm not
it
sure
up.
the exact number.
I'll look it up in the code right now.
We'll pull it up.
Okay. Well, someone can get me the answer to that in the next half an hour or hour. That would be greatly appreciated. But I'd like the number of citations issued for each Orioles and Ravens home game since Orioles opening day in 2023 in a spreadsheet by date, by RPP area. So that would mean 7 columns, 1 column for a date, and 1 column for each of the 6 respective areas, and the number of citations issued. And feel free to throw in Billy Joel or Bruce Springsteen or whomever else played at M&T and Camden Yards that qualified as a stadium event. And while we're on that, the total attendance required to trigger a stadium event parking enforcement / towing action is how many people? That number has changed historically over the last decade and has fluctuated between 10 and 25,000 people at one of the stadia. Do we have
We'll
that?
confirm that number as well.
Yeah, do we have that written in a policy somewhere? Or a internal operating procedure?
I'm not aware of that offhand. That's something new for me. We'll check into that one and follow up with you on that one.
Okay, we'll
Chairman
be,
Costello, can you repeat the the RPP districts that you'd like
Absolutely.
included in that analysis?
8 Otterbein, 41 Sharp Leadenhall, 30 South Baltimore, 9 Federal Hill, 5 Ridgely's Delight, B as in Bravo, Pigtown/Washington Village. Okay, I'm gonna come back to parking enforcement once we cycle through all of our colleagues here. Whatever information that we just discussed that you guys are able to get your hands on would be greatly appreciated.
Mr. Chair, I do have an update on the fine for parking, stopping, or standing in violation of posted restrictions in any residential permit parking program area within the Oh, sorry. My apologies. The fine is $100 for parking in a RPP zone in a stadium restricted
So
zone.
102 then, right? Because they all have a plus $2 tack on. Again, I'm not going to split hairs over the $2 today.
I'm not sure
but-
about that.
Okay. All right, very good. Come back to parking enforcement to discuss further. Councilman Schleifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director, just want to thank you for your responsiveness, and, I call you a lot, all times of the day and night, and so I just want to thank you for jumping on those issues, and there's no shortage of them, and hopefully, as we progress, there'll be less and less issues, but
Hopefully
I
so.
appreciate your responsiveness to the issues that I do bring to your attention. A couple things that I want to just highlight and just get some more clarity on. I'll start off with crossing guards. So obviously that's a big issue across the city, but in my district recently, a child was hit by a car. It's something that I've been advocating for a while. I really think it started when I got on the council, been pushing for more crossing guards around the schools. And so I just want to see like how many crossing guards we have, if there's vacancies, what that looks like, and then talk about some solutions.
Yeah, so currently we have 26 crossing guard vacancies, but we, again, have really been pushing in the recruitment for those as well. And we have 12 that are in the pre-employment process. So kind of how we talked about it with the TEOs, we're working through all those pre-steps to get them on board permanently.
And how many do we currently have?
Total positions, Jamar, do you by any chance have that number handy?
I don't have that number offhand for
Let me
crossing
see.
guards.
Okay, we'll get you to that number in just a moment.
Okay, and so, I mean, obviously 26 vacancies is significant because as it is, just looking at the schools in my district, there's always those intersections that don't have coverage, that should have coverage. And so, this is something that I think has gone on a little too long to not have that kind of coverage. And I wanted to see if you're open to like some outside the box ideas. One of the things I was thinking of as we were talking a lot about, a lot more than I anticipated on the traffic enforcement piece. So we have traffic enforcement officers that are out there writing citations in different zones. I don't think there's anything more important than making sure the kids are getting to school and back safely. And so is that something that you guys can consider, that you take them offline for a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon, assign them to those locations? I understand it's not a one-size-fits-all. In certain downtown areas, you're going to need them to be there citing on streets that they're not allowed to park on between 4 and 6 or things like that. But I don't really have that in my district. And so I would much prefer seeing any of those traffic enforcement officers or really anybody on your team out there performing those functions for 2 to 4 hours a day rather than the other functions that they're providing.
So no, there have been cases in different districts, and in particular yours there in the Mount Washington area, where we have had some of our TEOs respond. So I know initially from when that child was initially hit that we already had crossing guards, I think 2 out there, but then we did have some additional TEOs go out there to both help to enforce the traffic operations and control some of those intersections, but also to collect a lot of observations. So we've been working very closely with the Baltimore City Public School leadership, the principal, the community, others, to try to talk about potential improvements to that area to make things safer for students coming to and from the school. So if there's particular other locations that you would look for some support, we can talk about it, but we have done that at times. It's just not a continuous all the time thing to just have all the TEOs out there, because recognizing they do have those other duties elsewhere in the city.
Right, so I guess I would have to understand the numbers better on how many there are in different zones to know what that would look like. But I would think that, with exception to a couple of like emergency calls that are necessary for them to respond out to quickly, I would think that it should be a part of their day-to-day role. at least while we're meeting the needs. And so I assume even if you filled all 26 vacancies tomorrow, there's probably still a need greater than those 26. And so at the very least, I think that there should be 26 people, whether from that division or other divisions, assigned to spending whatever amount of time it takes. If it's the hour before school and an hour after school, that they're taking those 2 hours of their day and performing that function. So if you don't mind, if you can just get back to me like after budget hearings, just to see if that's something that you evaluated and something you're willing to do, at least to meet the vacancy need.
Okay.
And then the second thing I wanted to get into was the ADA stuff. I know that there was going to be an influx of ADA functions being provided, new ramps. So can you talk a little bit about that? You know, what the plan is on that? I obviously have a lot in my district that needs that. You know, my district has about 4 miles of city-county border. And on the county side, they've done it pretty much at every single curb is dropped for wheelchairs and strollers, et cetera. Obviously, my district's a very walkable. There are a lot of people walking, and so you kind of see that difference from when you get to the city side versus the county side. And so how many are you anticipating? How many do you have budgeted to be able to do for the ADA work?
So we have, so our approach to ADA, there's multiple kind of prongs for that. So I know some of what my team works with you on a lot is the footways aspects of it. So the footways team is of course going out there and doing more so repair of locations that are a potential a tripping hazard or other things like that, broken sidewalk or something. So they might replace a panel or two to make those repairs. So that of course is ongoing, and I know that we should have already reached out. We're setting up some time to go and do some more
Right. Well, I'm
inspections
talking
with you
about
on
more of
that.
like
But
dropping
then-
the curbs. So like when you get to the end of the block to be able to go down and go across, because there's no kind of, you just get stuck. You get stuck on there if you're in a wheelchair.
So what we're doing as far as the ramp remediation goes is twofold. So whenever we have our external resurfacing and also under our internal resurfacing efforts, then the ramps within those areas are being identified for upgrades. The contractor who is doing the external resurfacing, they do those ramps as a part of that resurfacing. For the internal, we have to have a separate contractor do the ramps as a part of that resurfacing. Separate from that, then when we have our dedicated sidewalk type of contracts, ADA contracts, through the development of our transition plan, we are looking at kind of like a certain prioritization. I'll talk a little bit and then I'll turn it over to Valerie to talk more about it, but we're trying to follow that prioritization process to determine like what areas or what locations throughout the city we focus on. We did get some under the fiscal 24 process, we did get some ARPA dollars, and so we have contracts that we're proceeding with to be doing some additional ADA work, and that work will be coming forth. But I'll turn it over to Valerie to go on and give you a little more details about that.
Yeah, if you can just kind of give me a little more on like how many of those ramps you plan on doing this calendar year, and how many you've done last year.
Certainly. So last year, in support of the resurfacing in-house, over the entire agency and all the contracts, we reconstructed 433 curb ramps. Those are the ones at the corners. And the average number, depending upon the locations that the council approves for resurfacing, they average anywhere from 400 to 700 ramps a year. And so the prioritization process that we use is, number one, we do need to meet our federal obligation, FHWA, of doing the ramps that are in connection with resurfacing, because that does trigger that federal regulation.
When you say resurfacing, are you talking about the street or when you guys repair a sidewalk?
The street.
Okay.
So
So
when
anytime you repair a street, in conjunction with that, you're also doing the curbs?
We're
So-
required to do the curbs, yes.
Gotcha, okay. And what's the annual requirement that you guys have to do a year?
That is dependent upon the number of locations within each of the council district that are selected for resurfacing. So every time we do a block, face-to-face, 1 block long, we have to reconstruct the ramps at the intersections.
Gotcha, so are you also, I mean, obviously you're doing them because based on the volume, but do you avoid doing ramps that are in areas that you're not doing resurfacing, or?
So that's our first priority, is we have to meet the FHWA obligations based upon the resurfacing that's done in the city. The second step is to remediate some of the past locations that do need to be remediated. We also, then the next level is we do curb ramps for what we call an ADA accommodation request. These are our residents who are disabled, who essentially are trapped inside their house. They can't get down into the street to either get on MTA mobility or into a private vehicle to get to where they need to go. They contact the Department of Transportation, and we evaluate their residents to see how we can effectively allow them to be transported around the city, and also to get out and visit with their neighbors. And then the other thing that we have is we have a strategy plan to citywide prioritize additional ramps that when funding allows. And that prioritization is based upon equity zones. It's based upon major transportation and transit corridors. It's based upon where government buildings and government services are, healthcare, and making sure that we can get people to grocery stores, to parks and recreation, and to employment centers.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, Councilman, I can go back. So we have 222 crossing guard positions. And so as of May 21st, 26 of those are vacant positions.
So it's over 10%.
So, but we got 12 that we're trying to hire, so.
Okay.
But yeah, that's.
I mean, I think it's okay. I mean, if that's a number, I think it's a pretty reasonable request to ask that you guys backfill that in a temporary capacity on a regular basis, not just after an incident takes place, so that we're at least operating at that full capacity. And then as you hire, those folks can go back to spending all 8 hours of the day on their regular functions.
Okay, we'll do some evaluation and follow with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can piggyback on the chair's questions here, inquiries about parking enforcement for just a moment, I'd love to survey my colleagues here for a second. How many folks on the committee here are aware, or on the council here, are aware that when we talk about parking enforcement, that is not inclusive of vehicles having no license plates on them? I know this. Does everybody else know this? What the budget book is telling us, because that's not included in parking enforcement, that's included under abandoned vehicle complaints, is that if I report a vehicle sitting on the street today having no license plates on it, there's a 46% chance that that gets responded to in 5 days. How many people think that that's acceptable? Okay, just wanted to make that point that nobody here thinks that that's acceptable, and that I have proposed to the Department of Transportation a whole different way that is, I think, utterly practical of addressing this, and I'd love to see any progress at all on that. That said, I'm going to ask about street resurfacing. And I'll preface this with, look, everything I'm asking here, I feel like I ask every single year. I feel like I'm just having the same, it's Groundhog Day every budget cycle. It is May 31st, and I don't know what tech division is doing this season, and I've asked for it for like 4 months at this point. And a year ago, I was sitting here saying, we're well into the paving season, and I have no idea what tech division is doing this season. And a year before that, I was sitting here going, we're well into the paving season, and I have no idea what tech division is doing this season. And I've asked for it year after year after year, well in advance. And it's not possible to comply with the Complete Streets law if we don't even know what tech division is planning to do at this point in the paving season? Who is going to account for this problem?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. So I will own the responsibility of ensuring that we provide that list to the council much sooner. As I shared with you, and I think some other members of this body, we actually adjusted the process this year for how we were sharing that information. And we wanted to ensure that the mayor was able to review and approve the list before we shared that with council members. So I own that. I will talk to the director and also to the mayor and come up with a schedule for next year that we will work to stay within so that we can share that information more timely.
But thank you, appreciate that, but per the response that I've gotten every single year, if DOT doesn't identify what they're actually going to be working on, then they don't design any changes for those things. They don't, unless something's changed from every single year that I've raised this issue, DOT doesn't design anything for any street that it has not already decided it is absolutely working on. And so if we haven't begun design work on the changes, if these things are not decided on already, then how can we possibly have design work done for things that we're expecting to do this year? Do we have design work for things that we expect to do this year that are not hanging over from last year or the year before?
So I think that gets into different categories. So one of the things is the internal resurfacing. So for that, where the design comes into play is when we're talking about the design of the ADA ramps.
I'm not asking about that. I'm specifically asking about the tech stuff, not in-house stuff.
Okay, so for the tech stuff, so there are no design plans as of yet for the signing and pavement working. So I think that's something that we've talked with you about and other council members about, as far as that, seeing those plans, understanding and engagement as far as any changes or things that are being proposed as a part of those projects. So no, those plans are not done yet. That's an ongoing process. So it's kind of that thing of, once that list is established, to say that these are the locations that will be done, then that's where we start leveraging the traffic side to then be working on and starting to develop those plans.
So how many plans are we talking about here? CAO, you've been in the seat of approving these. How many do you have for approval for this year?
The tech list? Mm-hmm. Give me a second to pull it up.
While we're waiting on that, how long on average does it take us to develop plans for a given tech project?
There's a pretty wide range depending on the complexity of the pavement marking plan. I would say initial concept of development can itself be about a month, and then to get plans, we typically bring a consultant on board to do our striping plans for these resurfacing projects, and a single plan, a month or two with revisions typically.
All right, so for a single tech project, we do an in-house process of kind of preliminary design for it that takes a month, and then we bring on a consultant who finishes the job off, and they take a month or two.
That is correct.
All right, so tomorrow's June 1st, July, August, September. So it's September 1st before we can tell anybody what the plans are to do anything for this year's tech projects.
So that is specifically for the striping, and then recognizing that, one, the early part of this year, we've been experiencing a lot of rain. I know we're still going to be communicating the final list out to all the council members. So, and also because of the funding that we got through in fiscal '24, it was more than we had been getting in the past year. So even the work that we put out and say, this is our list, we already recognize it's going to be multi-year type work. So it's not all going to be completed in this year. That's not realistic because we thankfully got more money, so we have more projects, more work to be done. So it would be going on throughout. So once we establish the order of projects that are going to be completed by the contractor, then that would allow us to then schedule out and say, this is the order that we need to establish those signing and payment marking plans to support those projects.
I'm going to come back to this. Did you get that number?
Yep, 27.
So 27 projects that we need to put in the pipeline here for design. And I don't know of a single project that's planned to actually be resurfaced by tech in my district this year. If 27 is our number for this year, I don't know, and we had more money last year, if we're in the same cycle of like, we plan for more this year than what we are going to get to this year, and so some of it rolls over next year, I have to assume that there's stuff from last year that should be rolling over to happen in my district, or, from last year to happen this year, and I don't know of plans to do any tech work in my whole district this year.
So again, the list is forthcoming. When I say this year, so the tech resurfacing, technically it's not really going to be a calendar year thing. It's not feasible to do all this work, all those locations in one calendar year. So it is a multi-year approach to go to all those different locations.
But I assume that means we're going to have the same amount of work that gets added. I mean, if we have the funding, the same amount of work is going to get added on next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. I mean, assuming we continue to have a similar amount of money year over year. And so if I'm waiting on the tech list for this year, what I guess I'm being told is that actually I'm being given the tech list for next year. I just don't understand the timeline of this. Like, I don't know of anything that's happening this year that is already planned. And if it takes more time than we already have left in this paving season to do the planning and preparation to be able to do any of the work, then none of what is on the list for approval this year is going to be done this year. Especially because I haven't even touched on the community engagement, right? So if we don't have the plans, we can't do the community engagement. And so this is going to add more time into this timeline here. I'm just trying to understand, does something need to be, is everything working the way it should be working?
So one thing I do want to mention is, as the director alluded to, the increased highway user revenue. One of the challenges, it was as recently as this January, all of that was in limbo. So
all of that was what?
It was at risk of being impacted by the state transportation trust fund shortfall. Okay. Thankfully, we were working with the administration and our partners in Annapolis. We were able to maintain the forecasted increases, not just for this year, but into the coming years. And I think that's going to put the department in a position to be more prepared for this influx of infrastructure dollars. And I think it's going to help address these timeline issues that you're bringing up.
Well, and like the CA said, so last year, I know we're talking about the external, but overall, the whole resurfacing program, we're going to be working with the administration and looking at, and again, this gets into also like our procurement practices as well, just how we go about the contracts, because that's one of the challenges that we deal with is that based on the approved budget in a given fiscal year, once that's approved, so July 1, we have that approved budget, then we start the procurement process for just the contracts for that dollar value, and then the process starts. So it's a matter of us looking at the process overall, not just right now, because there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes to try to get us to the point of actually being able to select locations, get to construction, or, let you all know what the list is. So, again, with the administration, we will be working on trying to find improvements in this overall process. Believe me, this isn't the process I'm used to in my past experience, and so I'm trying to come up with a way that we can be more efficient in this, but it is unfortunate that right now we're kind of going through this transition and still kind of dealing with the process as it is. But it's not the intent for it to continue to be this way. Believe me, I don't want you all getting the list last minute and into the season. My teams, they want to be able to work as soon as we start getting favorable weather. So we are going to be working with the administration on making some improvements.
I guess I've got two issues here. One is I did ask like months ago. I could go and dig up the email. I don't have it right in front of me, but I asked months ago, what are the things that are left over from last year that are going to happen this year? I don't have that. And so that's not even on the CAO's head.
So
right?
this is,
This is stuff that's left over that we're not waiting on approval for. This is stuff that is contracted or planned or was already selected at some point prior to right now that we expect is going to be done this year, and where are the plans for all of that? So I'm pretty sure I know I asked for this, and I'm pretty sure I don't have the answer to that.
So I will say this, Councilman, online, we have the orange cone list from calendar year 2023. That was last updated in November. That does provide a list of tech projects, projects that were completed last year and projects that are outstanding. And we can work on getting those designs for you for those projects that are left over from 23. And I could text you.
So that's calendar 23 is what you're talking about. Okay, it says on there calendar year 23. And
yes.
Yeah. If I look at this, it doesn't clearly indicate to me I can't tell at a glance what's been done and what hasn't been done.
On the orange cone list?
It lists on there.
I'm looking at the list online.
It lists I'll text it to you right now, but it lists it on a percentage basis. It'll say 0% done or 100% done or, 20% done.
And then in terms of planning and choosing these selections, we have a law on this. So for the tech projects, which are going to be our collector and arterial roads, right? Because the local roads are going to be our in-house stuff, generally speaking. The collector and arterials, they're going to be what falls on tech. We have a law, and the Complete Streets Manual talks about this. Establish a pavement condition index threshold that triggers mandatory prioritization for roadway resurfacing to avoid future, more costly reconstruction. Establish a pavement condition index ranking to identify and map roadways in poor condition. Use the following chart to prioritize resurfacing projects on a weighted scale. Equity, 25%. Pavement condition and index, 25%. Traffic volume, 25%. Safety, 25%. Each factor shall be scored and mapped with written justification for assigned score. Can we show our homework on the list that we have up for approval right now? That this system was adhered to?
I'd have to check into that and see. That specifically wasn't provided to me.
we'll follow up with what went into the analysis.
Yeah, I want to see the homework. I want to see the written analysis of how we're selecting our prioritization based on the Complete Streets manual.
We will send you a memorandum that outlines the process that we went through to determine what made it to the tech list this year.
Okay, I'll accept that for now.
Thank you, sir.
Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I first want to, it was good news to hear about the hiring for the crossing guards, the apprenticeship programs, and your traffic calming efforts are starting to be real noticeable. So thank you for those improvements. Councilman Schleifer of the 5th District had kind of talked about, I guess, the wheelchair ramp accessibility, and I guess all of us are, you know, citywide are, know that DOT is straightforward and really trying to help with pedestrian protection and safety, because that's your #1 goal with everything that you do. So as he was kind of talking about the wheelchair accessibility, something had came to my mind about how we are a city that, you know, have lots of trees and grass and things that grow. And when those pieces are put in, for like the first week, they are just beautiful. And then as a couple months go by, they start to fill up with debris or tree limbs. And do you have a plan where there's someone assigned to keeping all these things clean? Because there are ones where there's no way a wheelchair or even someone walking on crutches could come through in some of these ramps, because the way they're designed, they kind of hold the debris. So as you're building all these things, is there a plan to have someone consistently clean them around the city? Because if they're not open, there's no way someone can, you know, use them and stay on the sidewalks. Any plan for that?
I'm going to have Valerie LaCour speak on that.
So we are developing and will soon be implementing what we call a sidewalk and curb ramp maintenance program. One of the issues we have is that seeds get in between joints and in between those detectable warning surface bricks, and they do grow. And so what we're going to be doing is establishing a maintenance program to get the weeds out of those curb ramps, and where there's ponding, that's usually settlement, is to be able to get out there and correct that situation so that there's not mud and debris at the bottom of the ramp that people need to get across. And then the other thing we're going to be doing is working on an education campaign. So in the city of Baltimore, sidewalk maintenance is the responsibility of the property owner. And one of the biggest issues that wheelchairs and people with limited mobility have is in the joints of your sidewalks in front of your house, if the vegetation gets thick enough, it actually creates a barrier for the wheels to get over it. And there are simple ways to be able to take care of that from the homeowner. We're not asking, we don't want to put any burdens on the homeowner, but what we'd like to do is to educate the homeowner on how important it is when they're mowing their grass to make sure that they're trimming or weeding out the joints in their sidewalks. Our biggest issue is we want to make the sidewalks passable, and that includes the curb ramps at the corners. And so we are working with forestry on some innovative tools to take care of when the tree roots disrupt the sidewalk and lift it up, rather than having to put it on a list to get a contractor. We're developing some tools with forestry so that we can make those passable and safe, so that then we can do the long-term reconstruction that we need to do. And then and we hope to demonstrate that hopefully by the end of the summer. We've got some ideas put together. And then we're also working on a way of, especially around our transit corridors, which is how a lot of our disabled population and our senior populations get around, is to make sure that they have direct access to the bus stops and the bus shelters, and there are not objects in the way for them to get to where they need to be. So we do have the programs outlined. We're getting ready to do a few demonstrations to see how we can do it. Our goal is to have this to be done not strictly by contractors, but to get some in-house capability so we can get some quick action. I will tell you, I have to give kudos to we do have a masonry crew. And when we're out and we either here in 311 or when we're out doing inspections, if we see that the detectable warning bricks are in disrepair, our masons usually are out there and have them repaired, usually within 24 to 48 hours. So I have to give props to our masonry crew. They really understand that they've got to get those bricks put back.
Thank you. So there is a plan, and it is going to be starting soon.
Yes.
Okay.
And it is part of our transition plan, for our ADA transition plan. We will be doing public outreach, and more than happy to present it to the council so that you can see what we plan to do and what our schedule is going to be.
Thank you. And the second question has to do with, I guess, permits for special events. And is there somebody in the office that is consistently communicating with the people? Because there still seems to be a problem with getting back to leaders that are planning things like parades. They have to send several emails. Then they send them to us. One good reference is the annual 4th of July parade that Roland Park gives every year. There still seems to be non-communication with getting that completed. And that process started with them back, I want to say, January.
Thank you for that question. So I'm happy to discuss more offline. There's actually a person in my office and on my team, Lindsay Jackson, that can work with the council on any special event challenges that you might have.
Okay.
He actually leads a weekly special event coordination meeting. We have a special event report that I owe you all. But Lindsay can help you if there are any issues around special event permits. He works directly with Michelle that's in DOT.
Okay. He's a new person?
No,
Added?
Lindsay's
He's
been around City Hall for a while.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. I will kind of move on and until the chair returns, and he had mentioned that Robert Stokes was next.
Thank you. Director Johnson, I just want to thank your staff. I know you had a lot of short staff. Y'all get a lot of requests. Y'all got to get a lot of emails. And I know Kendall and Liam, especially Ms. Thomas, I worry them to death. And they get the job done. And I want to just say thank you for that. With a staff of 27 people, you're short. I know what the request is. But my other question is, Councilman Costello talked about how your process for hiring. Have you ever looked at how you reduce that process? I know the police department is going to be more vetting, but I'm talking about on DHR side in terms of getting them into the pipeline. I know it's going to take a little longer with the police department. Because at one time before we got Workday, them guys, returning guys, they got a job right away. Now it's very difficult. I don't know if it's Workday, and have you looked at how do you now kind of streamline that process from DHR?
Sure, I'm happy to take that question. Thank you so much for that question. I think one of the things I mentioned earlier today was some of the work that we're doing around reforming some of our hiring practices. And so we were able, just recently, we had a job fair over at War Memorial. I think about 1,400 people showed up. And it's a part of a broader campaign that we have called Baltimore is Hiring. And so through that process, we were actually able to do on-the-spot interviews and ended up doing job offers, and the turnaround time was much quicker. that was one kind of component of Baltimore's hiring. I think there are also some opportunities for us to lean into some overall process and systems reform so that we are expediting the process by which we onboard and interview candidates. The other piece that I think was important here around TEOs and even police officers, certain classifications of positions, we have an opportunity to do year-round recruitment for those positions and ensuring that we always have an open job requisition that we can actively recruit and we can keep updated lists. And TEOs are one of those positions where we're and trying to ensure that we're recruiting year-round, getting active lists, and we're constantly hiring for some of those positions. But absolutely accept and respect your feedback around streamlining the human resources process for some critical roles.
And follow up with the TEOs, are y'all, because they don't get paid a whole lot of money. So you ain't gonna always get to fill those positions. Have you ever looked at maybe increasing some of the salary with that also?
Thank you for that question. So in my hearing, I mentioned about the citywide salary study. And so as a part of our 10-year financial plan, we're actually going to be looking not just at TEOs, we're going to be looking at housing inspectors, all of our positions across government, because I think we actually have what I would consider a pretty antiquated salary scale. And so there's an opportunity for us to really modernize and upgrade our salary scale, which would then lead to some pay increases for some of these critical roles. Now, what's also important is the the negotiation process. So any changes in pay and benefits would have to be negotiated with the union. But that salary study right now, we're estimating the cost to implement at between $50 and $60 million. So it's going to be a significant undertaking for the city, and we likely won't do it all in 1 year. We will do a phased approach over 2 or 3 years, but absolutely TEOs and some of our other critical roles are at the top of the list.
And my last question, this could be, what I'm gonna say is gonna be, some people think it's good, some people think it's bad. Bike lanes. And I support bike lanes. People driving like they lost their mind since COVID. And you watch people can't get across the street, literally run. You watch kids at elementary school literally run across the street. What are y'all doing different in terms of getting that communication out? Because some of your bike lanes are not traffic calming. They become a traffic jam. So what is the city government, what's your DOT doing to have a more robust conversation with communities that's out there saying they're not informed enough? So that's my question. Are y'all gonna do it a little different? It's gonna be more robust? It's gonna add a lot more conversation with the community, and that's, to me, been the issue for some of the communities, because some of them you look at, traffic calming is good, but some have become a traffic jam. So how are you putting that conversation out with the community so we have a bigger, robust conversation with the community?
Yeah, so I know I've spoken on that before, and some of the challenges in the past. So as I've been, I'll say, rebuilding my team, because I had a lot of vacancies, but I'm glad to get to a point of having a good senior level staff and a lot of our key division chief positions filled. This is a focus of ours. So part of that Safe Streets for All grant that we received, about $9.9 million grant, that has a large engagement component in it, education engagement campaign. And so that will get into not specifically just bike lanes, but all aspects of complete streets and safety and things like that. Additionally, I've been kind of prompting the team to start thinking about some other ways we can approach the engagement process, not necessarily just do the way things have been done in the past, but other ways that we can kind of come to the community and talk about concerns or problems that we see, hear from them about concerns or problems they have, and then talk about some more idea development on solutions. As far as the traffic jams you referenced that sometimes like the bike lanes can create, CLIA and the traffic team have been working on that as well. So of course, right now we have our traffic signal optimization project going on. But separate from that, like, for example, Harvard Road, we put in the protected bike lane and reduced lanes. So we have a consultant working on that corridor. They're currently doing some analysis, making some timing changes. This is going to be continuing through the end of June. So basically, they're trying to adjust the timing to create better flow throughout that corridor, considering that it is the one lane instead of the two that it was before. So that's some of what also had happened, like where we have signals, we might end up implementing that project and making the reduction in lanes, but that timing change doesn't happen in conjunction with that. So that's something we're looking at as well, that trying to better sync those so that the timing changes can happen a little more along with the actual reduction in lanes to help to reduce some of those impacts.
So real quick, this is my last one. I know I say it was not, but 25th Street between Kirk and Harford Road, I've been hearing little bits and pieces of y'all gonna put parking in if you use Maryland Avenue, you know how they park in the middle? I've been hearing that y'all talking about putting that there when you got buses running up and down 25th Street, dropping people off, getting on the bus, getting off the bus. That's when I talk about not a traffic calm, a traffic jam. So a lot of the business over there, if you do that, you're gonna get some pushback, I'll tell you now. But if you put bike lanes there, the people that own business on there won't be able to park on the street. That don't make sense. So I'm just putting that out there that is a bad idea if you're gonna have parking in the medium on 25th Street between Lock Raven and Harford Road. That's what I call a traffic jam and not no traffic calming. So I just want to put it out there that the community's watching that. I'm watching and the business people watching. So if you're thinking about doing that, I think you need to go back to the drawing board. That's not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Director, and appreciate, all the work you guys are doing. I know it's a pretty heavy lift. We're trying to juggle a lot of different things, but, every time I give your team a call, I get a call back, and that counts for a lot. One of the things I want to touch on is that sort of relay of information to our liaisons. Our team has been, your team has been very responsive, but hasn't always been totally prepared with answers from internal. It just takes a while for that information to bubble up, which can sometimes put both the council office and the liaison in just a really weird position where they're just not fully informed. I'm curious what we're doing, what we can do to make sure that they're getting timely answers, and when they don't get timely answers, that they have some method of getting a response or some timeline for getting a response so that we can relay back to constituents.
Yeah, so one of the things that just actually recently got implemented, and we're starting with the traffic division, is to use CityWorks. So we have the system, we have the ability to enter in tasks, items, requests, things like that to come in. So basically what I've said is any of those requests that are coming in from the elected officials or other requests from other entities that maybe comes directly to me, that those items will be entered into CityWorks. And then that way, it gives us a way for us to track and have certain due dates established to monitor the request, and then traffic will be able to upload information in there. So instead of us having to be reliant on the email, because a lot of things sometimes can get lost in all the email exchange, it'll be in that CityWorks system. So we're trying it out. So I'm saying we're doing it. It's like a pilot. We're trying it out to see how it's going to work, how it's going to function. So we're not fully there where every single thing is in there, but that is something new that, like in the last month, literally, that we've started using. And also, I've been talking to my GIS team. So I have a wonderful GIS team, and giving them another project. They love projects. So kind of how we have the resurfacing program out there where you see the GIS map and you can see the locations. I'm working on establishing one for our dedicated location-specific capital projects. And so basically, it would be a framework where someone could go onto the website and select their district or look citywide if they want to. They could select, ADA work or bridge projects or bike projects, and then see on this map the locations of different projects. And then it'll have information populated in there where they are, whether it's like planning phase, design phase, or construction, and then like the general basic information about that. So, and then additionally, I know right now we have like Streets of Baltimore where there's some project information out there. So if there is a online presence, project web page for that project, then there will be a link included. So they can click the link and then go to that project web page. That is, again, within the last month or so, I got them working on that project. So they're starting the framework of that and kind of conceptualizing how we're gonna work through it. Of course, there's a lot of data for that initial dump of getting it established, but then we will be doing routine, to be determined. So I don't know if it's gonna be quarterly updates, for example, that we would go on there and update information, but then that would be public facing so that you all, your constituents, would be able to see that and have that information available. So right now I'm estimating that could probably maybe like around this time, like next year, like it'll be fully out there. But again, we're in the early stages of it, but there's more things like that we're trying to do to make it more accessible for you all in the public, more easily accessible, but also ways to try to help that liaison team in having access to the information. And additionally, internally, we've established like a project stat where we brought together our liaisons, our engineering team, our contract administration team, whoever needs to be a part of that, to go through and review the statuses of projects. And so by us having some of those discussions, the liaisons are also getting some of that information in real time. They're taking in their updates, and then they're able to potentially then send out information to you all proactively, or if you all did come and have a request, then they would have better access to that information.
That sounds great. So first, do we, I know this is still very early, any rough timeline on when we might expect to see some of this implemented?
Say the last part again?
Is there any rough timeline on when we might expect to see some of this implemented or at least piloted?
So the capital project portal, I'll just say, I don't know what the actual name would be, but that would probably be around this time next year. So it's, I'm estimating about a year to get it out, but because we have some of the framework for it, because of the resurfacing program and things like that, it might be sooner. So I know I'll meet with you and meet with some others, but we can definitely let you, give you an update on where we stand, say in a few months' time, once we've done a little bit more working on that project.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. And just a thought, is something we brought up in a couple of the other previous hearings about CityWorks and its interfacing with 311, that doesn't exactly transfer over, which, as long as we're able to continue to have like a free-flowing access to liaisons and responsiveness from liaisons, we can still get those answers, but it would be nice if those two could communicate, and we could very easily just go into 301 and see that information very easily, refer that back to folks.
Well, and actually with that, I forgot to give an update with that as well. So we have also been working on the traffic calming public portal. That one, of course, has been more challenging because BSIC has to work on having that communication between Salesforce and CityWorks. So, of course, the SR is coming through Salesforce. Our teams work within CityWorks, and so we needed that connection. So they've completed the phase 1 and phase 2 of the development. Like I said, that includes that planning, requirements gathering, design, development of the preliminary visual and the data architecture needed to have that public portal. We've had some additional initial trainings with the staff and reviewed how that will work in integration with our traffic calming policy SOP. And then we're looking to have a pilot testing phase this winter to kind of see the functionality, work through any lasting bugs, and then have the full rollout be later next year. So a lot of the questions or concerns that come into DOT are traffic calming related. So that one right there would also provide easy access to your constituents, to yourselves, to go in there and see the status of it. And so some of the reconciliation is also, we might have a intersection or something where everyone's asking for the same thing, but you might have 50 SRs for the same request. So they're also working through the necessary framework to kind of consolidate those and have just the one request, so it's recognized as one project at this location. But that one will be huge for you all as well.
And as a follow-up, just because we don't have these systems implemented yet, there's 3 things that I need follow-ups on, and if I can make that an official request. The first is for, well, we got some funding to do a traffic triangle at Millbrook and Northway. Wanted to know where that progress was and what it would take to get that job done. The other is a no left turn on York Road in Cold Spring that was put there, and it is causing a lot of confusion for folks who are trying to go north. We asked to take that down if possible. We still don't have an answer on that. And then finally, we were pulling together a meeting for constituents on Melrose and Charles. And just wanted to make sure, I think we have a tentative date. It'll be important for us to make sure we share that date as soon as possible with the residents in the area so that they can plan accordingly and we can nail down an answer for that. So if we can get follow-up on those 3 things, that would be really, really helpful for Monday. Is that possible?
Will do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Conway,
Yes.
can you repeat the intersection for the first request?
So it's a traffic triangle that's going to go on Millbrook and Northway.
Millbrook and,
Northway.
great, thank you.
Yep.
And sorry, just want to offer one thing. So the City Works does actually communicate with 311. We have had issues of data mismatches between the 2 systems, but they
Okay.
do currently, they are connected.
Yeah, what we end up seeing is often we'll see closed out by agency management or something like that, which it doesn't give context for sometimes what could be complicated, a complicated resolution.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Director. The first thing I just want to lift up is just just thanking you for the improved communication, both with the general public. I think there's the sort of online presence of the agency and be able to like push out information to folks on how to report things like potholes or the just sort of progress that things are making, and just being more public facing about that has been refreshing. So I just want to thank you all for that, and just internally being able to set up sort of better communication with our office. We've been having monthly check-ins for some time now. And I think for us to better communicate to our constituents on the status of projects, where things sit, that's just been a lot easier to do sort of with that just sort of regular communication. And so I just thank you for that. I'm not sure if this question honestly may be better directed to the CEO, but one of the things that we have, and we've talked about this, but I did want to lift it up in this hearing, has been some concerns about the procurement of materials, whether those are, for maintenance of bike lanes or in one instance, we've had some concerns about the sort of flood recovery in the Tremont, Irvington, Beachfield area and like needed signage and that kind of thing. Can we talk about sort of where, I know that's what I'm sort of like directing it to both of you, because I know that there's sort of like an outside work group that's like working on this a little bit bigger, but I know that there's some inside work being done too to both improve like how quickly we're getting materials, how we're getting them installed and that kind of thing. But can you just sort of speak to like where things currently sit right now and where we're headed as a city to sort of improve that? Because as you know, like again, that back to the original part about communication, folks are usually directing the anger at the council office as to why materials aren't coming as quickly as we expect them to. But I know that some of that's internal, some of that's external, and just sort of where we sit on that.
Sure. So I'll allow the director to respond to that, but I'll add some additional color. So I think there are a couple of components to the question and to your request. There's inventory management that is done by our agencies that we need to ensure that we are improving how we manage and monitor our inventory of materials. And Director Johnson, I know, has done some incredible work around ensuring that we have an inventory management system within the agency. Then the other component of that is the procurement procurement of materials, right? And so I think what you're referring to is some of the procurement reform work that we've done. And so we talked a little bit about that during the finance hearing. I'm happy to talk more about how we're reimagining and reforming the procurement process. A part of the new process will be that we actually need to plan for procurements, right? Too often, an agency will come to me when their inventory is low and they need to get something in an emergency within 2 weeks or 30 days, right? That's not proper planning, which is a key component of the procurement life cycle. And so under the leadership of our new chief procurement officer, agencies will be developing procurement plans. What do you need to purchase this year? What are your big procurements? So that the procurement office can have better line of sight in supporting agencies. But the big component that we'll have the director to talk about is our agencies need to better manage their inventory so that they can properly procure items. And Director Johnson can talk about what she's done at DOT.
Yes, so before I get into all of those, I do want to give you some good news. Speaking of Frederick, so the RFP for that was actually advertised a few weeks ago, and the bids are due this coming Wednesday, June 5th. So we're almost there. So once we have the bid opening and have more information, then we'll provide you office updates as that process proceeds. So as far as materials go, so yes, I know earlier on when I first came to the agency, we had a lot of different woes. We were low on a lot of things, sign materials and things like that. But we have multiple different procurements in the process, in the pipeline. We're working with Bureau of Procurement. The DCA Johnson has established procurement priorities meetings where the different agency heads and procurement come together to kind of review those and discuss our priorities and make sure we're staying on top of those. So we've seen great traction and improvements throughout that process in partnership with the administration. But so we have right now a good stock on the materials that we need, but we also have established emergency procurements. So until those procurements that are in the process get approved, we are pulling from the emergency procurements to keep us covered during this time. So right now we're good with our signpost. We've got sign materials. We've got paving marker materials. I know we've been working on doing the total crosswalks and other improvements out there throughout the city. So right now we're in a good place, and we're continuing to monitor that. So I've got my data, my performance team, who is working with the different divisions on their inventory management aspects. There was something that was established a while back, but we're taking a look at that to establish new thresholds for at what point does the stockroom need to notify that, hey, we're getting low on these materials, we need to either order more materials, or then also managing those contracts to then identify, hey, in 9 months, this contract's gonna expire, we can't renew it, we need to get a new contract in the process. So collectively, we've all been working on making improvements to that in those areas. Mm-hmm.
That's all I had for this round, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Madam Director. So I come with both praise, but also concern. I've gotten a number of things that we've done right with communicating the community, getting them access to the things that they need. I'm just gonna be transparent with you. I can name 5 or 6 people that I can email in your agency that are on it, get it back to me, right? I can say your chief of staff, Ms. Thomas, Eric James, Liam, as soon as I get it to them, done. My liaison, the lag is, I know a snail will get back to me before she does, and it's just being frank. And at this point, I have a number of outstanding issues from the transition from when the traffic director left. And I think that and I say this, it's been 2 years since we requested. To give you an example of how bad it is that I share Holtz Heights with another council district. The other side of the community got their actual traffic calming. The other side did not. That to me is a big disparity. When one was completed within 6 months of the actual request.
So what I would like to do is go on and get a meeting on the books with you to review the list of items that you have and those outstanding items, kind of, if you could prioritize them, like, so we can tackle, especially like low-hanging fruit, things like that. We can work on trying to push those items and make sure that those that you've named that have been responsive, that they're all aware of what those priorities are, and we can keep them pushing them forward. From the liaison standpoint, I know we are working on bringing in some additional liaisons. Obviously, with any time with employees, you're always pushing to have the necessary level of performance, so we'll continue working there as well.
Thank you. The next.
Let me offer on that as well. So what I committed to this council is that I would be responsive. And I hope that you all have seen that through your interactions with me. So what I ask this body to continue to do is to loop in me and to loop in my office, because I have a liaison in my office that works directly with DOT to ensure that you're not experiencing any delays or lags in communication back to you. So again, just keep my team in the loop and so that we can coordinate with the agency so that you don't have those experiences.
Thank you. The next is your hiring practices. I know we were in a pandemic. It was disheartening to find that a number of your planners were not citizens of the city of Baltimore or experienced the roadways as I do every day. Is there a way that we can commit to doing robust and aggressive hiring for people who actually live here or are willing to live here? Because until you experience the traffic pattern, until you walk the street and live there, you don't understand it than just simply looking at a Google aerial view or just walking it that day with people. So I think that I would like to see a strong push from your HR to find people who actually live here. I'll give you an idea that one planner lived in Queens, right? I could tell you that like some of the things that she tried to implement, we had to correct her on because she didn't know the traffic pattern because she visited that day. That traffic pattern was different because the Baltimore City Police Department changed and closed a roadway.
So I can have Jamar speak to it a little bit more, but I know that we are heavily focused on Baltimore City. Obviously, people apply from all over. You know, like I said, in the case of my replacement chief engineer who's coming on board, he's leaving Nevada and moving here to Baltimore, so he will be living here. But I did a nationwide recruitment to try to find the best for the city. So, you know, we are actively, and we have many people who are living within the city, and some of our planners who ride their bikes into work as opposed to driving. So they are here, but of course, when we are recruiting, we have applicants from different places, and as a part of that interview process, we kind of do have to follow those requirements as far as the scoring goes and who we're offering positions to. But if there's anything more, Jamar, you can speak to on the recruitment efforts, especially local universities and things like that, please do so.
Good afternoon. For the last 3 months, we've been to about 15 to 20 community associations, high schools, different neighborhood association meetings in reference to trying to recruit those persons who live in Baltimore City, because as you said, you know, Baltimore City's residents know Baltimore City, and we are actively, you know, looking to bring on more persons who live in Baltimore City because they have a passion for the city, in trying to hopefully, you know, with the apprenticeship program that we're, you know, restarting, you know, those persons, again, who live in Baltimore City, who have a passion for Baltimore City, who love Baltimore City, to provide them with the opportunity to work for the Department of Transportation.
I'm happy to hear that, but I'm focused on planners, people who impact my day-to-day of driving. I can tell you, Clea is amazing because she will experience the roadway by driving or biking or walking. And she can tell me down to her experience and say, there might be timing with the traffic signals that needs to be fixed because she's that intensely thinking about the everyday user. I'm telling you, until you're able to experience that street, you're not able to articulate a plan that fits the needs of the people in that community. And often, it can't be cookie cutter unless this is the same thing everywhere else. So I mean, like, case in point, Morgan State has a great transportation program, right? While it's not in my district, I will say that you should go across town to Hill and Road and ask some people about what are some students that we can train now, get them in internships, and allow them to transition into a job at DOT, right? or Coppin State University. Let's find someone who's going in for a master's degree in equity, and let's get them there, right? There are opportunities where we can build the bench without having to go for national searches to find someone.
Yep, and so thank you so much for offering that, council member. That's exactly what we're doing through the HBCU Fellowship Program. DOT is one of the agencies that's going to be participating in that program, where we're taking graduates from Coppin State and Morgan State University and creating opportunities for them. I think we're looking specifically at engineers in DOT as well as planners. So appreciate that feedback, and we absolutely are working on that.
And this is my last question, and this is just a commitment from the administration. We're filling in a major healthcare gap at Mondawmin Mall with both primary care for seniors as well as primary and specialty care for residents. We also need transportation access because a number of things that's happening, whether it's the advocacy at the state level to get it, our fares unattached to the actual pricing index, because that is disproportionately impacting my residents. I think that it is time to move a circulator route to West Baltimore. Namely because we have a lot of treasures in West Baltimore, whether it's from Drew Hill Park to Coppin State University. There are a number of things that our communities can access. I say that because the two libraries in my district fill in the gap for a food desert. You can actually go and get food from Walbrook Junction Library. You can also do it at Penn North. You can also get social services, meet lawyers in the library. We have to give people access to get there. And I think it's time that the second most used bus route in the state of Maryland, which goes down North Avenue, we have a free route on there, because I'm just being transparent. There are some routes that are duplicating services where we have not only JHU, UB, and others supplemented, Collegetown Shuttle, that can actually be replaced and sent to West Baltimore.
It is 3:23 p.m. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. We will reconvene at 3:33 p.m. Thank you. Okay, Baltimore City Council Ways and Means Committee, we're back for ordinance number 24-0521. Folks, grab your seats, please, and thank you. We're back for ordinance 24-0521, ordinance of estimates for fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. Department of Transportation continued. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have two quick questions and I have to leave. One is the outcome indicator on Service 500 street lighting, or output talks about percentage of street light outages repaired within 4 days by DOT internal crews. Let me first say I just appreciate all the attention that DOT has been given to my district. I'm very appreciative. Thank you very much. This particular indicator, though, seems high to me, considering that last year we had to wait like 1.5 years to get poles to be able to have streetlights. And so I'm just curious about these targets and actuals, because I had like 2 poles that we were waiting on for 1.5 years, as you remember from last year. So is the 4% might be mine that are not in here, or what's happening there?
All right, so I'm going to turn this one over to Kendall.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Chair, Council members. Councilwoman, that particular situation is related to BGE polls. So our measurement is for internal resources. So you may have a situation where you have a poll that's the responsibility of BGE.
Nope, those were not BGE poles. The DOT had to replace them, and you were behind on getting them from supply chain.
Okay.
And it was 1.5 years before I got Kirk and Gorsuch replaced.
Yeah, if you could supply the addresses, I can certainly look into it and see what the
You
situation.
fixed it. You gave me the email that it was
Yeah.
fixed,
Well,
and
quite often we fix BGE polls too. So we'll get requests, and for expediency, we'll just take care of it, but actually it still belongs to BGE.
Yeah, it was definitely it was a BGE pole. Okay, it was a BGE light, but they were relying on DOT to replace the actual pole.
Right.
Because the pole had been destroyed in a crash, to my colleague's point earlier, or the other day. So I understand that, but I'm just curious about this indicator because it was apparently a very big supply chain issue. So it just seems high is all I'm saying.
Well, I can certainly say with confidence that our street lighting team is one of our highest performing in the maintenance division as it relates to SLAs. So I wouldn't consider that unusual for it to be so high, but consistently every year, they're one of the highest performing in terms of SLAs.
Okay, I can dig into that a little later. I do want to thank you. The lights in Hillen have finally been replaced. Thank you very much. The neighbors are very happy about that. I wanted to also just ask real quick about street cuts, which you know is one of my favorite topics, and one of my most frustrating relative to BGE in particular. And you had stated earlier, Director, that there were a lot more investigations of street cuts this year, or this past year, and a lot more fines. I'm not finding that BGE is doing any better. So are we seeing that some of these other companies in BGE they're just paying and then they get caught and then they have to do it? Or are you actually seeing improvement?
I know that I have overall seen, I think I will say more improvement when it comes to BGE. Of course, there are, I think some of the frequent street cut issues that may come up, you all might have, is where they have some type of temporary patch, and then that temporary patch fails for various reasons, and then they have to respond. And so, you know, usually once we notify them of that temporary patch failing, they're getting fined each day that's not corrected, but then they're responding and they're restoring it. And then, of course, with the permanent restorations, that's the goal, to get them to finish and do the permanent restorations within that 120-day time frame. So there's been, I know, a lot of collaboration between the team, between the right-of-way team and BGE, and that was part of the reason why I decided to have the street cuts team move from maintenance over under the right-of-way division, so that there's better alignment between right-of-way, and they have all the permits and know who all's doing the work out there, and then them being able to go out there and do more of the inspection to try to stay on top of the compliance issues.
And we have more inspectors now? Because last year it was one.
I think there's maybe, hold on. What's that? Oh, have we hired any? That's what I was thinking. So there's been one addition to the team.
So we're keeping them busy.
Huh?
We're keeping them very busy.
Yes, we are. Keeping them very busy.
Yes, yeah. And then I just sent you an email and the CAO following up on my requests for this year. So we had a meeting about 2 weeks ago, and I was just curious about, you don't have to answer it now.
Okay.
But, you know, if I could get an update on that, that would be super.
Okay, will do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies, I have to leave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Director. Do want to just start by acknowledging your staff is very responsive. There are folks within each of the divisions that work really well with my staff, and I appreciate that, and also appreciate some of the work that you've started to do with us around the promenade and Boston and Haven streets. So want to just start by lifting that up and thanking you for that and for your work. That said, one concern that I hear consistently across the city is it is too cumbersome for residents to get basic traffic calming in their neighborhoods. It can take an extraordinarily long amount of time to get a street hump, a blinking light, speed humps. What can we do to make the process more user-friendly? And is this an issue of a lack of woman and manpower within the agency to be able to effectively manage the requests?
Okay. So first off, I appreciate your kind words, and we've built a great working relationship with you all, and I'm part of the team as well. But so when we were in the process of preparing for the fiscal 25 budget and potential potential cuts, reductions in levels, as well as potential abolishment of pins. Myself and my CAO, we met with each division chief and discussed their current operations. We looked at vacancies, we looked at their needs, both now and into the future, to assess where we are now versus where we used to be. And also the classifications. In some of those conversations, I was told where I don't need this classification anymore, but I need more of this. And so what we've done is gone through and kind of strategically looking at those needs. Traffic division, well, there's the two, but so I'll say the engineering side because that's a lot of what you're talking about. The engineering side does need some additional resources, and I'm gonna be working on trying to make some changes there. Some of it will come from the HBCU initiative effort where we'll be having the interns come, the graduates coming in as interns. Of course, where we have potentially vacancies, then if we already have someone through that process, then it'll be easier to get them into like that permanent position more long-term. And then some of the positions that might be in some of the different divisions where really we don't need those positions anymore, then we've been creative in taking one or two of those positions, working on reclassifying them to create positions in other areas. So that's still kind of a work in progress. We've done it a little bit to some extent, but now that we have this final plan on what the two traffic engineering divisions will look like, then we're in a position where we can then start making those changes for those positions. Beyond that, we also do leverage consultant help. So that is something that we rely on. A lot of times if we have more of a quick turnaround urgent request that needs a lot of focus, then we might issue a task to one of our own consultants on board for them to work through that and kind of take the load off of the in-house staff. Or vice versa, maybe someone on our in-house staff is able to come up with something really quick and then push out a plan. So it just depends on what's going on at that time. Hopefully that answers your question.
If I could attempt to summarize, what I'm hearing is part of the reason why it takes a very long time for someone to get a 311 in their neighborhood on a traffic calming initiative resolved is because there has historically been a misalignment within some of the divisions within the Department of Transportation, and you are in the process of doing a realignment of your staff as well as leveraging management consulting in order to effectively address those concerns. Is that an accurate summary?
That's one piece of it. And then another piece of it is essentially kind of the process. So we recognize that in the past, especially with the pandemic and all, there was a large backlog of different requests that were there. And we, of course, have transitioned to a new traffic calming policy. So that changed the way we look at these requests and the way that we process them. And so our process now is very different, where it's not so much of like the major petition type process, and we're also trying to be more proactive. So even though we don't have areas where where we get a lot of service requests because maybe that community doesn't submit SRs, but we're also looking at areas where we have high crashes and then trying to be a little more proactive in those locations. So for the overall process, we're looking at it from a standpoint of a little bit more of a neighborhood standpoint. So if we have multiple service requests in a given area, instead of just looking at one or two of them, we're looking at a certain kind of radius and then trying to assess what are the issues in this area and then trying to come up with a little bit more of a holistic approach to it. If it's a matter of, for example, speed bumps being the recommendation, then of course that's going through the notification process from the communities, going through the concept design layout for us, is going through the review from the fire department, and then once it gets to that phase, then we develop the work orders, and then we're working on programming it out. So depending on how many requests we have for speed bumps at a given time, then it's a question of what year does it fall in for the actual installation. Sometimes that also has to do with actual projects that are going out there, because I know we may have some locations right now that need speed humps, but there's utility projects that are there or planned in the next year, so then we're waiting for that. So there's a lot of different factors that goes into it. If it's something that's a little more like striping related and flex posts or some type of barrier type or something we're putting in more physical on the roadway as opposed to speed humps, then it could be that it's a matter of funding it in a given fiscal year through the capital program, or it could be that we know that we need to come through a resurface a roadway, and so we'll include those traffic calming elements as a part of the final work for that resurfacing project. Or there could be sometimes some developer projects and things going through there as well that we are trying to coordinate with. So there's a lot of different factors. If there's some particular locations that you have concern, then please let me know, and then we can go back and look through that list and see where they stand.
I would say that it was remarkable to me as I knocked doors across the city how often I heard frustration with lag time around basic traffic calming. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about something that's gonna, a bike lane, a new bike lane in a community. I'm talking about a speed hump. Cars drive really fast down this street, and my neighbors and I put in a 311, and it just either vanished and disappeared into the atmosphere or got lost in the sauce. And then what I frequently find happens is that, as we think about equity, those neighborhoods that have more resources, are better organized, then are able to bring it to their community association leadership. The leadership brings it to the council member then makes it a priority and pushes on it, and maybe the thing shows up. But again, I think it replicates some of the inequities in how resources are distributed across our city because the systems are incredibly cumbersome and not user-friendly, and often result in residents becoming frustrated and saying, hey, councilman, you told me do 311, go through this set of processes. I did it, and I'm still not getting what I would consider to be a reasonable response within a time frame. So, to heck with that. I'm just going to bombard your office with a bunch of complaints, and then that happens, and then we start pushing. Like it just feels like the system is not handling these concerns appropriately when they are relatively low-level common sense. And so what I'm trying to scratch at is, I know that we have had some challenges around retention of key staff within this agency. Is it a retention of staff within certain divisions problem? Is it a systems problem? Is it both? I'm hearing bits and pieces of both, but I guess one, what is like your vision of a solution to make the process less cumbersome and less where you need to do all this organizing work? Not that you shouldn't have to do any, because there should be some burden on residents to have to, participate and do more than just send one complaint or tweet or something. But how do we make the process easier? And what is a reasonable expectation for a lower level traffic calming programming that a community would want? And again, not talking about put in a new bike lane, not talking about something that would require major street modifications, but something that is like on the smaller scale. Because again, I think the variability in time at which these requests get responded to is also of deep concern to many of our communities.
So I guess I'll start with speed humps, for example. I would say from start to finish, as far as initial request to when we say, yep, we're going to put in some speed humps, that you're looking at is probably about, let's say, a 4-month time frame. Where that falls at that point is then you have the work order, and then it's a matter of actual installation. So recognizing that you've got a certain amount of months in the year that you're going to be able to actually install the speed humps because of weather, then that's kind of like an ongoing basis. So even some of the speed humps that we were planning on installing last year, just because of weather, we didn't get everything in. We hit, again, some record numbers for our speed hump installation. So in the last couple of years, we've been revving up and really knocking out records of the past. And we've been doing more from a traffic calming standpoint. And we've changed our internal processes to better address some locations and also address some locations proactively. But that's one of those things that is just a matter of the magnitude of work that they're doing. It's a matter of the factor of the weather, how many rainy days we have, and then if winter comes a little bit sooner versus having a warmer, longer, warmer fall where the asphalt plants stay open. So there's just some variability there. But again, we're also trying to clean up some of the backlog from the past. So we're not talking about just the present day numbers or requests that are coming in, but we're also trying to work on some of the things that were already in the past that for whatever reason didn't get done before I came here. So the team here is trying to do some of that cleanup as well. Then there are other locations where we are going after additional funding or grants. Like Council Vice President, there was location, Liberty Heights in Oakdale. Oakdale? I think it's right. Yes, where, it's has a lot of crashes, there's traffic calming concerns, there's safety concerns. For that one, we've put in a Highway Safety Improvement Program grant to get funded for a traffic signal. So we're hopeful that the state's going to approve that grant for us, and then that another location would, be getting those improvements. So it always depends on what the solution is. If it's something very small where there's a location where we need to put in some a painted bump out with some flex posts, then obviously, yes, that's something that's a little bit quicker, and a little bit easier to just implement sooner. But other things that are a little more comprehensive throughout a corridor or roadway section, multiple blocks, then it takes a little more work. So it really just varies. But we have been, like I said, making some improvements. There's a long list of different locations that we have for the 2023 HSIP grant awards. And then there's various different school safety projects that we're working on and other things we're working on for traffic calming. Again, like I said, our planning team in consultation with our traffic team have identified certain high crash locations. So maybe it's in a neighborhood where the neighborhood isn't organized. They don't have a neighborhood association president who's active and working with their council member representative. But we've identified that as problem location. And so we're being proactive and trying to come up with some solutions for that location. So all of these changes are really coming about in the recent couple years. And it's a change from the way things have been historically done in the past.
No, and I appreciate that. What I would like to see is improved communication about the processes, because I think that what frustrates residents is the lack of certainty, the lack of clarity, the lack of consistency. And again, I'm sort of choosing my words carefully here because I don't want to offend anyone, but I think I know there are some neighborhoods where the backlog is like 2015, and there's others that get theirs pretty quickly, and is that level of variability that I think leaves residents feeling deeply frustrated. And so if there is better ways of communicating the process and sort of bringing people along so that it's not so dependent on effective communication from a city council person or from someone, it just feels like there's a gap in terms of how the system is transmitting these. And again, sometimes it's quick, but I've heard some that are years and years and years behind in terms of delivery, and no one checks up. So to sum it up, appreciate some of the challenges and appreciate some of the work that you all are doing around procedures and standardization. Just want us to communicate realistic timelines and expectations to our constituents so that we're not saying things that are inaccurate or saying things that can't be delivered. And I think that is one of those things that within the administration, we got to figure out. It often, I think, to our staff feels like very city council member dependent, which is fine. Like, we do not mind helping and leaning in on those issues, but from a systems level, I think you can't, the level of variability and lack of certainty is a challenge.
So what I can tell you, I know that 301 hired a new PIO, and so she's working on educating the public more about the 301 process. And additionally, I think as we work to roll out the public traffic calming portal, I think that would be an opportunity also to kind of incorporate, I don't know if it's like a FAQ or something like that, but something like that that also helps to people to understand the process and the different types of tools that we're using for traffic calming and potentially what some of those timelines would look like. But once we have that portal up there, then more real time, people will be able to see the requests that have been submitted. They'll be able to see the status of the request and where it's in the process, and then potentially when it's planned for installation.
No, I appreciate that. It just, I think that will be a great addition. It just, then the system has to work. Otherwise, I mean, we tell folks to use 311 all the time, and then when it fails or the communication is off, or the date is missed, the delivery date is missed, it creates further sense of disenfranchisement, or folks just don't continue to use systems. So, again, appreciate it. Also glad to see the circulator going to South Baltimore. I think that's really important. Agree with my colleague, though, it should go to West Baltimore as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Dorsey has a very quick follow-up to that.
Yeah, I was shown a beta version of the portal like 2.5 months ago, and it's still not up. The commitment to me during the budget last year was that this public-facing site would be up FY24 Q4. We've got 1 month left in FY24 Q4. When is this going to be up?
I'll have to check back on that. I'm not aware of that that timeline.
Let me connect with the agency, and I'll follow up with you on a timeline.
Okay, but you did show me the beta version of the portal like 2.5 months ago, and it was like basically nearly ready to go. So what's the timeline for getting it up?
So we're doing, I think it was pilot testing this this winter, and it was supposed to be rolled out next year.
That's not the timeline that was given when I was shown this thing like 2.5 months ago. You guys said you were like a month away from launching this thing.
Okay, I'll go back and reference the email and everything that I sent out. Everything that I saw was, because initially I think it was saying late 25, early 26. So we'll just have to go back and verify that.
So the commitment letter from the mayor to the councilman on June 14th of 2022 was that a public-facing website for all traffic calming requests in their respective status. And in the mayor's letter, it says, my administration commits to maintaining this information on Open Baltimore prior to the end of fiscal year 2024.
Right, and in subsequent conversations, it was made clear that DOT was pursuing this through a portal rather than through Open Baltimore. And so as we got closer and closer to Q4 FY24, the expectation was clear that this portal was the thing that was being delivered. But the timeline is in black and white in front of you and me.
Yep. So thank you for that, Councilmember Dorsey. So the fact that you've seen the portal demonstrates that we are still committed to getting this done. We do want to get it done in the right way. I will connect with the agency, and we will work on coming up with a realistic timeline because of the fact we know we already are in that beta phase. We have a product. We want the product to We want the product to meet your standards and what you've requested, and so I will work with them, and we will follow up with you on a timeline that we think is realistic.
Can I see the portal as it stands today, next week?
Yes,
Can
we
somebody
will-
at DOT meet with me to show me exactly what's changed in the last 2.5 months to move this along?
Yes.
Where it stands today? I'd like to comment on where it stands.
Got it, and I will join that meeting with you.
Thank you.
Burnett, did we do you yet? Excellent. Parking enforcement. Do we have any of that data that we discussed an hour or two ago? Excellent.
Yeah, okay, so as far as the shifts, Monday through Friday, in the 4 a.m. to 12 p.m. shift, there are 9 officers. 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 12 officers. 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 8 officers. 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 11 officers. 10:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., 11 officers. 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., 12 officers, and then 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., 12 officers. And on the weekend, excuse me, we have a shift from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and that's 10 officers, and then 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., and that's another 10 officers. And so based on those timelines, when you have the 4 a.m. to 12 p.m. shift, that's scofflaw focused. The 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. is scofflaw and releases, and then 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. are abandons. And then all the other shifts, they're serving in different capacities for all the different violations that could exist.
Got it. Thank you. And what happens when there's didn't you have a request last year for an overnight parking enforcement pilot?
Not a pilot, that a shift would be established.
Was that committed to you?
That was very clearly committed to me.
Do you have a copy of your, I was reading from your 23 letter. Can you email me your 24 letter?
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much.
I can speak to that commitment.
Please.
Sure. So I've had a number of conversations with the council member around this particular commitment. And I acknowledge that we have done work around establishing overnight parking enforcement. We're in the final stages of having conversations with the union. There's a meeting that's set up with the union next week. I imagine, well, not I imagine, but we will have to go through the formal union process, which I imagine, which we may have to negotiate with their attorneys, but that meeting is established for next week. It is highly unlikely that it will get done in this fiscal year, but my goal is to still move forward at some point this summer, if not the fall. I need at least the fall to be able to establish this overnight shift. But we have made progress. We've come up with a pilot. I've briefed members of this body on that pilot, and I commit to you that we will get to overnight parking enforcement.
In the fall?
I will work as hard as I can to get to the fall. What I can commit to you is that I will follow up at key milestones. One of the key milestones is going to be that meeting that's going to happen next week. I will follow up with those interested parties that are members of this body on the status of that. So the chairman and Councilmember Dorsey.
Excellent. Thank you. Any of the other data points that we discussed, was DOT able to dig any of that up? I know we talked about RPP citations during stadium events. I think there was a couple other things, but I'm blanking.
I want to make a request for a breakdown of information related to the abandoned vehicle SR, which I have strenuously argued needs to be done away with.
Actually, give me
Yeah, go ahead.
1 second. We'll come back before we switch from RPP. Go ahead.
I was thinking we had the number as far as the stadium event tows, but we'll follow up with that number. I just want to confirm it before
Okay,
we speak on
so
it.
just to clarify the request once more, and I guess expand on it, because that's a little different, which is fine. But
Okay.
you're reminding me of something that I should have asked for before, and I failed to do so. So what I would like to see is every stadium event since opening day for the Orioles in 2023. That would be the time when they got good. And I'd like to see citations issued as well as tows, now that you just brought that up, Director, for each of the 6 areas per day of the stadium event. So it'd be a spreadsheet with 13 columns. Columns would be the date in the event, and then citations for each of the 6 districts, that'd be 6 RPP areas, and then tows for each of the 6 areas, so 13 total columns. And then the number of rows would be like 81 for the Orioles, and then I forget if the Ravens had 1 or 2 preseason games, and then their preseason practice, so let's call it 10 for the Ravens. And then however many home games we've had this year for the Orioles, it is May 31st, so we've probably had like 28 or 30 home dates. And then any major concerts that were not on the same day as a Orioles playoff game like we had last year. How quickly could DOT produce that data? I assume all that's available in some form or fashion on Open Baltimore. It just needs to be aggregated and organized per the request. But how quickly do you think someone could put that together?
Yeah. If we could have 2 weeks for that, please. That'll give time for the data team to pull everything and then for it to get reviewed and vetted and make sure everything's accurate before submission.
Is it possible by the end of next week?
I don't know.
Or more specifically, is it possible before we vote this budget out?
So I will work with the DOT team to provide you that information. Give me until Monday morning to tell you the date.
Get back and
Yeah.
figure out. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Faith. All right, Dorsey, I'm gonna come back to your abandon in a second. I didn't forget about that. Can we jump over to Service 685, Special Events? I am in, so this is within the right-of-way division, correct? This is under you, Chief. What other service areas do you have underneath you, or services? Just out of curiosity. I think once upon a time, there used to be a right-of-way service a long, long time ago, but.
So special events.
Yep.
Also have street cuts. Prop-
Street cuts.
Property location, property transactions, minor privilege.
So street cuts management, 696. Real property management, 727. That's you. Survey control, 694. That's like
Oh, Papa.
David Fram and
Yeah,
John,
survey control
John
is his
Staley.
too.
Yep. You don't have bridge, you don't have snow. Fecal impound, sustainable. Public right-of-way landscape management, 691, or does that mean, that's Kendall, formerly Kendall.
Yeah.
Gonna miss you, man. Special events, street management, 683. Is that you?
That is,
683.
no, because that's more preventive maintenance, resurfacing,
Oh, okay.
sidewalks, things like
Yep,
that.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so anyway, back to 685, special events. I'm on page 420 in the positions table. So we have 14 total people in the division. I think I understand what a CDL driver 1 and 2 is. Highway maintenance supervisor, a laborer, sound equipment, carpenter, got all that. So then I've got 7 positions here. I've got an executive assistant. I've got 2 office support specialists, 2, a permit and records soup, a permit and records tech, 2 of those, and a license and right-of-way inspector. Those are the folks that process the special events.
They all have a role, but the inspector primarily works with vendors. So him not as much.
Was it, give me like a 1 sentence of what the inspector does, just to educate me.
So with mobile and stationary vendors, he oversees the licensing process for a license in Baltimore City, and he also does inspections related to them getting their licenses and inspections of licensed vendors to make sure that they're abiding by all the standards in their license.
So what is that, like food trucks, that type of stuff?
Food trucks and stationary vendors.
Okay. So then we have 6 people that process special events permits?
Correct.
Okay. And how many of those 6 positions are currently filled?
We have 1 vacancy that we're currently trying to fill, the permit and record tech supervisor.
Was that Anita Taylor?
No. So I have an Anita James that works on our
Anita
staff.
James, sorry.
No, that wasn't,
She went to DPW?
no, she's currently on our staff, Anita
Oh.
James.
Okay, I'm confusing her with someone else. Okay.
We did have someone in that position at a point last year, but they're no longer, it didn't work out.
And where are we at with filling that 1 vacancy?
So we're working with HR now to fill it. So we've got approval to post it, it's been posted, and we're trying to get candidates together for it.
So we've, the job is currently posted on DHR's website? Or the city website? Okay.
No, the position was posted, so now they have to select a candidate of who they're going to interview.
Oh, we already posted it,
Yeah,
so,
it was posted a couple months
so
ago.
it was posted and presumably multiple people expressed interest that were qualified?
I would assume so. I don't remember that particular list, but yes.
Okay. All right, so can someone get for me in writing how many qualified candidates we have for that position? And that is the permit and records supervisor, number 33293. Thank you. That is an official request, yes, ma'am. Okay. And we've changed the rules again for special permits, special event permits. Have we changed the rules in the last year?
Yeah, I'm not sure if any changes in rules.
Well, if I were to rent out picnic space in a park, I no longer go through Rec and Parks, I go through DOT, right? When did that start? maybe perhaps I'm confused. So, depending. Okay. But there was a change for larger scale events? When did that change take place?
That's been in place for, I'm
No,
not sure how long, but it's
the
been in
big
place.
ones, the big ones.
That's been in place. Like if it was a certain
Turn your mic
threshold.
on.
That's been the case as long as I've been on the council. I've had a number of conversations about this. It's really hard for me to discern why we do this the way we do it, but as long as I've been on the council, if you want to have a small event in a park, you go to Rec and Parks, and if you want to have a big event, you got to go through DOT, because I guess maintenance of traffic or other concerns may be related to it.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So usually with those larger events, then there's going to be more of an impact to the right of way. There's maintenance of traffic concerns. There might be security concerns. There's other things that come into play. And so it goes through the more formal special event process review. And they also likely will have potentially equip rentals and things they want to request through DOT as well.
Right, got it.
So I want to offer a little bit here. So our team, actually Lindsay and Alan on my team work closely with DOT, Rec and Parks around making a couple of key reforms to the special events permitting process. And what we've created on DOT's website, we actually reimagined the website, and it's more of a kind of a one-stop shop feel. So you go to the DOT special event website, you pick whether or not you want to do a park event, a special event, 200 people or more, an event at the Inner Harbor, an event at on a private property. Like there are all of these different categories, and then that will then send you to the appropriate place to apply. So right now I'm on the website, and if there's a park event, so I start out on the DOT special event website. If it's a park event, it sends me to another landing page, which is through BCRP. So we're trying to create this no wrong door kind of atmosphere, if you will, for special events.
Okay, just bear with me here for a second. I'm pulling that up.
Mm-hmm.
So when were those changes made?
That was likely a year ago or close to a year ago. So it didn't change the process itself. What it did was streamline the process, because what was happening is you have residents that don't know that they need to go to the Rec and Parks website to apply for a park permit. And so now when you search special events, it takes you to one place, and then from there you can click through to get to where you need in order to apply for a permit.
So I'm on that website now. So it says select the type of event you would like to host to access the online application. The first two choices are event permit or special event. What is the difference there?
A special event is 200 people or more. An event, when you go to event permit, it says, is it a block or street event, a park event, Inner Harbor, private property? So you click through based off of the type of event that you're looking for.
If I may add also, there's another distinction. If it's a demonstration, then it becomes a special event because there has to be constitutional considerations. That's the other small caveat that they don't talk about on the website.
Yes, thank you, sir.
They have some learning to do, so I'm going to circle back to this in a little bit. Dorsey?
Thank you. If anybody here wants a briefing on why we should abolish the abandoned vehicle SR as a separate type, happy to have that conversation for the 100th time. In the meantime, I don't know how much good this is going to do with a 46% rate of getting to these in the 5 days, but maybe it'll tell us something. I'd like to know the outcomes of these on a day-to-day basis. So on day one, how many are we getting to, and how many of them are gone on arrival? On day two, how many are we getting to, and how many of them are gone on arrival? On day three, same. On day four, same. On day five or after, same. Because a part of my argument here as to why this SR type is so bad is that we don't get to almost any of them until the fourth or fifth day, and we have 1, taken in, 3 and 4 other calls complaining about that same thing in those few days and had to weed through them as duplicates. And 2, the customer dissatisfaction that comes with that. And 3, that we're wasting people's time when we finally get to them on the 4th or 5th day, only to find that they're gone on arrival, because when I call something in for a parking complaint, it should be addressed the same day, preferably in the same hour, but not 5 days later. And nobody thinks of a car parked on the street without tags as anything in their, day to day, I think, as something other than it shouldn't be parked there. Why is this car parked on the street? It shouldn't be parked there. Somebody should come out and give this car a ticket for not having tags. But we've made it literally impossible for a member of the public to just report a car being parked on the street illegally and expect that it can be ticketed that day. So I want to know how many we get to on day 1 and how many of those are gone on arrival day 2, and how many of them are gone on arrival, and so forth, because I have to assume that fewer and fewer of them are gone on, more and more of them are gone on arrival the farther you get away from the day that the complaint was made. And so I want to see what the data tells us about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Torrance?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Madam Director. So, a division I love near and dear that use a lot, street cuts. I'm concerned because of staffing, as much as I have to call them for DPW and some of our contractors just creating unsafe conditions. How are we addressing not only their current staffing level to respond to the number of issues that we have citywide, but also, for the life of me, I've had BGE, Comcast, and others, and even our own agencies, do work after hours, and it'd be extremely unsafe. So I'm wondering, just like I asked the code enforcement last night, how do we become a flexible city to meet the 24-hour needs as we are emerging?
So I guess that's twofold. So I have been evaluating to determine where additional staffing needs exist, to see what we can do as far as repurposing existing positions. I haven't yet approached the budget office about any new positions, but that, of course, is a conversation to be had. Again, if we're doing anything in those later hours, overnight hours, if it's any of those unionized positions, then obviously that's going to be a conversation with the labor commissioner and the union as well. So I don't know if in this, as far as street cuts specifically, where everyone falls, and if any of those type of conversations have occurred in the past, but that's something that I've been having regular conversations with the Madam Commissioner, so I can definitely re-engage with her on that as well.
Well, love an update on that too, once you do have it, because let me give you an example. One of our contractors decided to do night work. That said night work then hit a water line that then caused disruption in not only water services, but flooded the conduit. And the other piece was the trench wasn't done properly by that contractor, right? Mind you, they weren't a city contractor. They were just someone who said they were gonna do night work. I had called, emailed, street cuts, we woke up some people, I'll put it like that. We woke up some people. But I think it's easier if residents see something, they say something, we have someone out there, even if it's just 1 or 2 people that are either on call, part-time. It's the same thing. I said this because I had my own conversations with union partners about these positions, because I come from AFT. I understand that an MOU is easy to say, to put in place, to say that we're willing to, at this rate, allow people to actually work these hours, whether it be by their choice, or if you allow part-time persons, so long as they have some representation in the same hours. I think that is a conversation. I think our union partners are more than flexible enough to help us there, because at the end of the day, they want to make sure they have a strong bargaining tool when it comes to the table, that their members are needed. We need more people to do these jobs. So happy to help you with that conversation too.
Appreciate it, thank you.
My next question is related to Druid Park Lake Drive.
Druid Park Lake Drive. I know we are funding both in the CIP to get there. What I am fearful of, and this is not your agency's issue. Me and DPW will have that conversation later next week. My coordination is getting DPW done so that we can move in and do the roadway, right? Because I think there's two parts. Once DPW's done the restoration of the park, it then turns over to Rec and Parks to do the visioning plan, and then each portion is delaying the roadway. And the conditions in terms of safety of the roadway is dangerous. I would love if we have another walkthrough again to look at, case in point, I was driving home, Linden and Druid Park Lake Drive. A person ran through the red light and nearly hit a woman and her 4-year-old who was crossing the street, right? Because of the inconsistent timing of the lights. And if people sit there long, they're gonna run those lights and they're gonna keep running them. Case in point, when I come through Reservoir Hill, I stop, I pause before I enter from Utah Place onto Druid Park Lake Drive because I know I more than likely will be T-boned either from a westbound or eastbound vehicle. That's one part. The other conversation that we need to have is comprehensive traffic calming in neighborhoods. I'll give you an idea. While I have those issues on the Reservoir Hill side of Druid Park Lake Drive, the Druid Park Drive portion, I'll put it like this: Woodbury and a portion of Council Vice President's district, which is also Park Circle, are experiencing the same things at Green Spring and Druid Park Drive. Right? We're seeing people run the red lights because the timing, no dedicated turn signal. I think we need to evaluate. I know you guys are planning to resurface Druid Park Drive soon along with Green Spring, but I think that a part of that has to be how do we fix that intersection too? Because too often I see a car in the median driving past it off Green Spring that has had a significant accident. I'll give you an example. I get an email from a resident on Green Spring Avenue every 2 days because there's an accident at Green Spring and Druid Park Drive. And then if she's not emailing me, there's another resident who's emailing me who lives on Druid Park Drive because she's witnessed 2 accidents that day, right? We need to figure it out because around this asset, there are people who are walking into it. I know that we haven't gotten there in terms of funding the actual roadway completely yet, but I think in the interim, we should find some type of solutions around those entrances.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely. We can set up some time to take a look at that, and I'll bring in Clea and whoever else from the team to look at that intersection and the other intersections in that area to try to come up with some solutions.
Yep. My next one is related to the Clipper Mill and Mill areas of Hamden. I'm still waiting on the finalized solution between you and DPW for the portion of the roadway that is eroding because of the falls really runs under the road, and seeing how we can fix it. That's one segment of it. The other piece is I have issues still at Garrison and Gwynns Falls in terms of accidents as well. We've seen some timing changes that have happened. However, those timing changes have led to people cutting in on Roslyn Avenue and speeding down Roslyn Avenue. I know that we are adding speed humps on the parallel street next to them, which is Elsinore. But now that people see the speed humps coming on Elsinore, they're like, oh, let me take Roslyn Avenue. And this is coming to issue with KIP as well. I think that in terms of schools where we have large populations, I think we need to work with city schools in their police department as to think about how do we structure not only drop-off lanes for people, as well as traffic enforcement, because they have the power to do traffic enforcement, and they should do traffic enforcement. That's city schools' problem for next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. But I'm seeing a pattern where around these large schools, I give you an example, while in 2 years, Western will be leaving to go to Northwestern for their actual renovation, I still have poly parents who park in Medfield, not even park, I'm gonna put it like this. They turn on their hazards until they can't get out, and they'll line up, and it'll be 10 of them at a time, and they'll block multiple roadways. And it's becoming an issue because not only are they blocking residents in who are leaving to commute for work,
we're seeing that it's becoming a choke point where people are beginning to be aggressive with each other. And I've had to have the Northern District actually sit an officer there to make sure that it doesn't happen. Otherwise than that, I would love to have a conversation with you about our nice speed cameras that turn off because of drag racing in my district as well.
Thank you, council member. I'm going to take my turn. Valerie's not here, I guess. She had to leave. I have a question that I've asked, I think Valerie, I don't know. I've asked generally a couple of times about condition of sidewalks, whether or not we have a graded or like tiered assessment of the condition of sidewalks versus just doesn't meet the most rigorous ADA standards or does, right? It's like in or out, or do we have a graded assessment of sidewalks?
So, I mean, we really are looking at compliant or not. There might be different aspects of the compliance. So there are some locations of sidewalks where it might be that because of, say, tree roots or something, then the panel is raised up. We're looking at some concrete grinding options to try to level that out, and then that way that eliminates that issue. Then there could be others in a worst case scenario. As she referenced earlier with the prioritization included in our transition plan, there's a strategy for how we're going to try to prioritize the locations where we do the construction for remediating and replacing sidewalks or ramps to make them ADA compliant. That's really the framework of it. Outside of that, it really is triggered also by if there's a project coming through there or if there's some type of ADA accommodation type of request that is then going to follow that process.
But my question is, do we have an assessment of the sidewalks that tells us, because I know we've done a sidewalk assessment.
So, yeah, so we have.
Does it tell us yes, no, or does it tell us level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however we grade them in terms of level of deficiency?
So there's no level deficiencies like that, but the assessment would identify what is non-compliant. So is it a sign in the way that's created a narrow area, or is it that the cross slope is too steep or something else? So it'll identify that type of information, but it doesn't give a grade as far as 0 to 10 or anything like that.
So my problem is that, I'm trying to draw a little picture here real quick. On any given street or in any given area in my district, I've got a problem here, 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 and here, where a tree has lifted the sidewalk up this much. And DOT came through a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 10 years ago, and put some asphalt in to try to grade that. And then DOT says, oh, but here, we got this complaint a long time ago about sidewalk conditions, so we've got to come through there and check it out just because it happens to be the oldest thing in our log for complaints related to street tree damage. When all of this is street tree damage to the sidewalk and it's egregious problems, we come through and we go, well, we had a complaint here that's really old, so let's assess here, 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 and here. And all we find are hairline fractures and minor grading problems, but we say, hey, they're out of compliance, and this is the oldest one, so let's fix all of these, instead of going, actually, we should be fixing the things that are the most egregious. If we're going to do something in this one block here, we should actually be looking around it for the things that are like the absolute worst problems. And this happens over and over and over again. We could walk through any neighborhood in my district, down any given street, and find examples of this. And I've been asking, what is it going to take for us to just prioritize, like, because this is sidewalk stuff that we're shouldering the financial burden for, right? This is sidewalk stuff that we're not passing on to the property owners. This is stuff exclusively from street tree damage, but we're fixing the most minor things and not fixing the most egregious things.
And the feedback is welcome, Councilman. I would say, just so, I think you're aware of this already, but just for the public's awareness, when a sidewalk complaint is investigated by an inspector, they're required to inspect that entire block. So one neighbor on the 4200 block of, I don't know, Moyer Avenue, complains about a damaged sidewalk in front of their home. That entire block will be investigated, and repairs that are, damage that is identified will be repaired once that contract is implemented. The thing that I encourage each member of the council and the public to share with us is if there's like an egregious, hazardous situation, there is a degree of flexibility built in to the budget. And we can always work with Satinder, excuse me, and the Alleys and Footways team to see if we can get that repair prioritized.
Yeah, I hear this, but this is a dumb system. This is a really dumb system because it's not substantially more effort to look at a slightly larger area. If I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna assess the block and I'm just gonna accept that this block has, let's say, 12 addresses that need some degree of repair. What that means is the city of Baltimore is gonna go out and fix 12 addresses that need repair. And it's not a meaningfully larger amount of work for us to go out and look at a 1 or 2 block radius instead of just that 1 block. There's no reason that our inspectors have to inspect that whole block, and there's no reason that our inspectors would need to be limited to only inspecting that 1 block, except that these are parameters that the city of Baltimore decided to adopt, that the Department of Transportation decided to adopt. When the department could just as well go, look, if we're going out here because we got a complaint about this one, actually, let's walk around the 2 block radius or the 1 block radius here. And if we just accept the idea that we're gonna, be doing 12 households, 12 properties, let's just go look for the 12 absolute worst ones. Because I've been down this road. I did a walk around part of Arcadia like 9 months ago when the neighbors started calling me going, they're marking the street, they're gonna fix the sidewalk, they haven't sent me notice. I said, okay, they haven't sent you notice, then it means that they're not gonna be billing you for this. This is street tree stuff that they're gonna be shouldering the cost of, so you don't have to worry about that. And they say, but there's nothing wrong with our sidewalk here. Like, there's nothing substantially wrong with the sidewalk on our block. Look around the block. And so I come out, and what's the result? The DOT takes the time to walk around with me, and they go, oh, we put asphalt in there, and it's been there a while. We put asphalt in there, and it's been there a while too. And we find a dozen different places where the sidewalk is in terribly, terribly hazardous condition. And what's the outcome? Because I asked them to pump the brakes on the conditions that were not egregious, none of that stuff got fixed, and none of the egregious things got fixed. Because I intervened and said, whoa, we need to be doing better. In fact, we did nothing at all as a result of that. And this has been my experience again and again and again. And for as long as I've been on the council, I've been asking Footways Division, what do we got to do to prioritize the worst conditions? Because those are the ones that people care about on a day-to-day basis. What do we got to do?
So all I can say right now, again, is that some of these considerations is what we're working on in developing as a part of our ADA program. So we have to have those ADA considerations. Even if someone sends in a request for a location and someone says, well, this isn't really, really bad, but still there is some type of need or concern, and it needs to follow the process. That's the thing. We need to follow the process. Part of what we're dealing with is making sure we have clear established SOPs and that we as an agency are following those processes. So what I can do is take this feedback back to Valerie to see if she and our team have looked at that specifically, and if there are any potential enhancements as we're moving forward and rolling out the formal plan.
Does DOT have a record of every location where it has used asphalt to bridge some gap in a sidewalk?
I wouldn't say a complete record, most likely. There might be some records from a standpoint of footways SRs that have come in where they may have, it gone to maintenance for due to some temporary type of patching or something like that, what's your reference, where they kind of like the asphalt to kind of bridge that height elevation. So we might be able to pull something from an SR standpoint, but beyond that, that would probably be the limits of it.
That sounds to me like a systems problem, right? If we're taking the time to go out and respond to a service request for a footways problem, and we're taking the time to put asphalt in there to bridge a grading issue like that around a tree, you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That should be going directly into a system to prioritize that, and it's not happening.
So there are processes in place now. Again, we're talking about historical and a large historical backlog for footways, and then we're talking about present day. So under the Scott administration and all of our focus on ADA, we are instituting certain changes from the way things were historically done. So there are processes moving forward. There's more communication with Valerie and her ADA team, along with footways, and so we're building up some additional capacity. And again, in recent years, advocating for additional funding to go towards footways as well. So there historically have been limitations in the funding for the footways team. So even if, let's say, we had 1,000 SRs, I'm not saying that's valid or anything, I'm just giving a number. If there's 1,000 SRs in a given fiscal year, they may only be able to address maybe 200 of those based on the funding that we had in the past. So we are pushing and leveraging and trying to come up with systems to address more of those requests and more of those needs. And again, like I said in the past, if there was a small, like about an inch and a half or so elevation change between one side of the panel to another in the past, we would go through there and potentially replace that panel. Now we're looking at and we're exploring different vendors and costs and all the materials that would be needed to try to work towards procurement of getting a concrete grinder where we can just grind down that lip instead of having to replace it. So we're trying to build in some new efficiencies as well.
I'm very aware of this because I'm the person who made the suggestion that we should be doing this. And I stood here a year ago and got a commitment that we were going to do this, and we still don't have the grinder. So where's the grinder? Like, when are we going to have this?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember. And the team may recall, I sent an email this morning committing that I would work with DOT to see if we've started the procurement process. And if we have not started the procurement process, I'll work with our procurement office so that we can procure the grinder as well as the bike lane.
Yeah, bike lane sweeper.
The bike lane sweeper.
So I want to understand where we are with this bike lane sweeper, because last year we sat here in these budget hearings and DOT said, we don't sweep streets, DPW does. And DPW said, we don't sweep bike lanes, DOT does. And I want to make sure that that is not part of the reason why we have not already procured this thing that we have money for.
No, and this is actually reminding me of a clean stack conversation, and I don't think the OPI team is here because we actually did, Kendall, you'll recall this discussion about the bike lane sweeper. And if I'm not mistaken, and Kendall or Alan can correct me if I'm wrong, there might have been some concerns even about the size of the bike lanes and the equipment being able to actually make it down the bike lanes. We had an ongoing discussion about some of the challenges with the equipment, but happy to follow through on that commitment, but we have been looking into it.
If we have such concerns, I hope it's not because we're building bike lanes to substandard size, because we're building bike lanes to substandard size. We have bike lanes continuing to go in that are smaller than the minimum size, even where we have ample room for them to meet our minimum standards. I don't understand why we're still doing this, but I talked about it a year ago, and it's still happening literally today.
I know of one, I think it was St. Lo that we had the conversation about and the reasons surrounding that. Please let me know the other locations you're referencing.
The Harford Road bike lane that's being installed today is substandard. It has like a 3.5-foot bike lane, including the drain pan, when the standard is that it needs to be 4 feet plus the drain pan. So there should be 5 feet there, and there's like 3 to 4 feet of extra space in the parking lane.
Okay, Leah's gonna look into that.
Yes, thank you.
Jump back to parking enforcement for one more minute here. So I have some preliminary data that a constituent compiled from Open Baltimore since opening day from last 2023. 111 Orioles games, and the average is 49 citations issued in all of the RPP areas, including at least 4 games with 0 citations issued and at least 9 games with under 10 citations issued. Ravens, 12 total games with an average of 53 citations issued per game, with 1 game having under 10 citations. And for the Orioles, well, suffice to say, we're leaving significant revenue on the table for these games. But I look forward to following up with you, Faith, on Monday. But suffice to say that the parking enforcement activity in RPP areas during stadium events is entirely not sufficient. And I hope that DOT agrees with that, and I hope that we can take some actions to remedy this. Chief Cloud, I want to jump over to your shop for a minute. The tree planting in Upton, the permits that we've been working with you and Rec and Parks on, my understanding is that There we go. My understanding is that Rec and Parks is ready to go, and we're waiting on your shop for approval.
So we had our last meeting where we talked about a path forward, but we haven't presented it to the director to finalize that yet.
When was that meeting?
I believe it was last week.
Do you know when you're going to talk with the director about that?
We'll set up time to meet on Monday.
Okay. Folks in Upton have been seeking to plant trees for a very long time. This is multiple months into the process. So I hope that we can expedite this and get this resolved on Monday. Can you follow up with me via email on Monday after that meeting to let me know if we're a green light or how much longer we anticipate waiting until there's approval?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Torrance.
All right, I'm gonna join the parking enforcement portion of it. We don't have enough TEOs, so is there a way that we can really sit down and think about this is me problems. Red paint is cheap, right? There are some areas that I know that we frequently 3-1s out for people, case in point, Pool Street, next to Roosevelt Park, that we have to send a TEO all the time during pool season to tell people that my friends at the fire department would greatly appreciate this because they struggled getting out Pool Street the other day to get to a fire, right? After helping with one call already because someone was parked on the fire lane side. I would happily love to join you in some areas and paint that little red line so people know not to park there, because when we had the sign issue, we didn't have anywhere to post the no stopping signs, right? So red paint, I'm getting out my car, I see red paint, instantly know not to park here, right? I think that is a simple solution for some of the staff shortages we have. We all know red means not to park there. I'm happy to join you in identifying some locations and rolling up my sleeves to paint it.
Yes, I saw that email, and I'm trying to get up to speed because that was something, that request hadn't come up to my attention. So I was trying to get up to speed with that and what we typically do throughout the city. So we're still just didn't finalize it before coming here today, but that is on my radar. We'll follow up with you.
I missed the discussion, so I will follow up with the department directly. Thank you.
Chief Cloud, the establishments on Washington Boulevard and Ridgely's Delight adjacent to the Camden Yards. We a couple months back about streamlining the permitting process so that those establishments didn't need to do a daily permit 81 separate times throughout the year for all the Orioles home games. Can you give me a status update on where that's at?
So it's something I've talked about with my staff this week. We need to do a little further coordination with the liquor board to get that in place. I can give you an update.
Can you talk about what the holdup or the challenge is with the liquor board?
I'd like to make sure I give you the right answer. If I could reply to you a little later to make sure I have the facts, the specifics correct.
When do you think you can reply?
Next week to kind of let you know what the issue is reasonable.
Is by Wednesday? Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll hear from you about what the status is of that. And my understanding is that establishments are, we have, there may have been a change that only permits establishments to be open for a certain period of time the day of the game prior to opening pitch versus having the right-of-way closure for the duration of the day. Is that correct?
That's not something I'm aware of. I can check in if you have a.
We have an
instance.
applicant who was told that, which is different from what's happened in years past.
Okay, I can check into that.
Okay, so we'll get an update on that on Wednesday as well. Okay, thank you. Dorsey?
I'm just going to ask a really location-specific question. I'm trying to make sure I have the correct address here. But in 2019, a building was constructed in the 1800 block of Maryland Avenue, not my district, but I don't care, I'm asking about it. 1809, I think. And at some point in the utilities connection part of the project, the bike lane had a cut made in it running parallel to the street. It's about 2 feet wide. That happened in 2020. I can tell from the Google Street View images. And that street cut has never been repaired to spec. So it's still a lateral cut along the length of the Maryland Avenue cycle track there. It's not restored to our street cut specs, and the paint has never been restored. My understanding is that there should be like a full lane width restoration there for the length of the cut, and that hasn't happened. And I don't know any way that a citizen can report this.
So I didn't hear the very last part of what you said as far as reporting, but we will get this to the street cuts team to investigate, and whatever type of restorations needed to occur will be done.
Thank you. This is I can't tell from the street view images or the aerial, this is the gray standalone row home type building immediately left of, let's see. It is 1817 Maryland Avenue. There it is.
Got it.
It's a gray standalone row home type building. And the street cut actually extends down through the property next door, J&K Auto Specialist. So it's probably 50 feet long or so. Yeah. I got a lot of street cuts I'd like to see fixed, but most of them are on DPW. I let you off the hook occasionally. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Torrance. Gone. Cohen. Ramos. Dorsey. Fabrication of street signs. There's a machine that cuts the sheet metal that we use for the signs, and the machine was broke last time. This was many months ago. Have we procured that new machine?
So we have two things going forward, is the disposal process for the large old machine, and then the process of trying to get the new equipment. Damian, if you could give some updates on our efforts in that area.
Yeah, so Councilman, we're in the process of getting rid of the old water jet so we can order a new machine. We're blessed to have a relationship with the state of Maryland. So we've been going out there cutting metal. That's why street names are being done now and the other signage. So fabrication of signs is taking place.
Where's the machine that the state of Maryland has?
They have Oldest Shear, one that we were looking to purchase, and it's going. Of course, it would be newer, but it's a durable shear machine.
The location, Hanover.
Oh,
by the
Hanover, yeah,
airport.
Hanover Complex.
Okay, so we're gonna purchase a
We're purchasing.
gently used machine.
No. What he's saying is that we have a relationship with the State Highway Administration, and so we'll go there and cut metal there, multiple sheets of metal, and then bring it back so we have it in stock to use ourselves. And so that's interim, because initially we were purchasing pre-cut metal, so now we're able to cut it
Which was more
ourselves.
expensive.
Exactly, so now we're cutting it. But outside of that, we're working on procuring a new piece of equipment for us and going through that disposal process for the old, large equipment.
How big is this thing?
The current water jet. Wow.
Yeah,
it's really large, sir. It's,
like a bathroom.
nah, you could probably make two bathrooms because it has water in it too. No, it's probably that end very into about right here. Cause it's a big tank. It's very, very large.
It's not something you can just pick up and put in a pickup.
No, sir.
Yeah, got it.
No, sir.
Okay, so we have to dispose of the old one before we can deliver the new one?
Exactly.
Where are we at in the procurement process for the new?
We've gotten some quotes for the new machine that we're looking to purchase, but we have not purchased it yet, but we are in the process of getting the quotes, and we're in the process of disposing of the current machine properly, because it's a lot of parts that have to be taken apart to remove that big machine.
How much does one of these gadgets cost generally?
Generally, they range from anywhere from $75,000 to $200,000.
And do we have a timeline for when we're gonna have the new machine?
Once we can confirm when we can get rid of the water jet, then we'll be able to, because the water jet takes up so much space, we don't have space to order a machine to have it stored. So we're working now to get a quote from the actual manufacturer of the water jet to have them come and disassemble it for us.
Got it. Okay. Go ahead.
I don't know that I understand this process of how BGE gets approval to begin one of their gas line replacement projects. Who oversees their plan before they're able to commence this? Is there somebody at DOT that does this?
So it's gonna go through the right-of-way division and the, well, if it's gas-specific, So yeah, right-of-way, street cuts is going through that
And are there
office, and
any standards at all on our end for the size of the project, to limit the size of the project for them?
So is the question how large of a project they can do at a given time and a location? I'm not aware if that can check, I'm not aware of that.
I've got a neighborhood that's been torn the F up for the last year because they've taken on more than they can handle in a reasonable length of time. They told me back in March that, and this was like 8 or 9 months into this project, that they were not going to be able to begin the process of restoration of the streets until July because they still had 350 households that they needed to contact to gain access into their house in order to make gas line connections. And these 350 households were scattered around, I don't know, 9 different blocks, 10 different blocks in this huge area that they were doing this thing. And so instead of focusing on a smaller area where they could look for, they could get all of the houses and really aggressively pursue getting access to make the connections into each house on a smaller number of blocks, they've got a way, way larger area. And so the whole area, the whole, however many streets, is torn up until they can gain access to every single house in the whole project area. And so this project, if broken down into 2 smaller projects, might take 6 months and 6 months and have area A torn up for 6 months and area B torn up for 6 months, ends up being 18 months, and area A and B are both torn up for 18 months. And it's because we're allowing BGE to take on more than they can handle in a reasonable amount of time. And I think that we need to do something to address this as a problem. Because they're embarking on a project of similar size that they just notified the constituents in my district of this last week. And they're gonna do the same thing in another part of my district, for the next year and a half.
So I understand those concerns. Like I said, we do have those regular conversations or meetings with BGE, so we'll discuss that with them to see if there's a way of trying to restructure or adjust the work. I don't know what's feasible, but we'll dig into that, and then also see. I think for the pavement restoration requirements, that falls into our street cuts policy. So we've got maybe in a future revision, there's something we can consider for that as well.
They got it for a project like this. They come through once, they dig a trench, they lay a new pipe, and then they have to run a new line from the new pipe to every single house that the project touches, and they've got to gain access into every single one of those houses, and in order to do that, and only once they've actually done those connections into every single house can they come back out and take up the cold patch that they had put in over their trench and all these patches and dig all that out and put in the concrete subsurface and then put in at every over the entire project area and put a 2-inch overlay on that until they get through the entire thing, and then come back and mill and repave all of that. I mean, the process of resurfacing, of doing the underlayment and resurfacing of a project of this scope is a 3-month project or 2-month project in and of itself. Once they've done all the other work, what do I get? I get a spreadsheet for the first time ever in my 8 years here, earlier this year, telling me, here are all the projects that we've got coming up in these different council districts over the next year or something like that. And it doesn't tell us anything about the scope of the project, how big it is. It just says, it's this project, it's got this name, it's in this area generally. And then when I finally find out about the project, it's second and third hand from my constituents who have just received a letter saying, hey, we're about to start this project in your neighborhood, and here's the full scope of the catchment or the area that we're doing this project. And then I go to BGE, you didn't even tell me like the scope of this project. You just said you had a project in the area. DOT, when did you approve of a project of such magnitude? So I think that these projects really need to be put in check in terms of their size, because I don't think that BG has even the littlest regard for the problems that they're creating for neighbors. Yeah, to say nothing of the absolute lack of traffic management in these projects. Stella May Contracting is doing the one in the Glenham-Belhar area right now, and have done not the littlest bit of professional traffic management on that project. And to my knowledge, they've never been held to account for it as a chronic problem. Only, kind of the bare minimum kind of response on the days when somebody specifically complains to me and I specifically complain to somebody, but nothing on the other 400 days that they've done the same thing throughout the course of this project. BGE is just being let off the hook to just treat our, residents like their quality of life just doesn't matter. And I think that we're complicit in it.
Colleagues, any other questions? Director, I want to thank you and your team for spending so much time with us today. I want to specifically thank Tavon and Damien and, of course, Kendall, who we're going to miss very deeply, but wishing you all the best in your new venture at DGS, and I'm sure we'll be seeing and hearing from you soon. Thank you for your excellent leadership and for being with the city. We're now in recess. We will start with Law Department in 4 minutes.